Yep.
Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. A bit later than expected, but we're doing the revisit of our Strixhaven draft archetype stream. Mostly in the week before the set comes out. We do a review of the draft archetypes of the set. This time around I did that with Pawel and also with Max. Unfortunately Max was not able to join us today, but Jason was very willingly to join in, and we're very glad to have Jason here. Jason has an insane win rate, as most of you know, in the set, and is definitely in contention for trophy leader. So very happy to have his perspectives. I think the idea of this stream is to look at what our predictions were and see how we did, just for the fun of it, basically. See how well we predicted the set and what the strong cards would be. But I think more important is look at the draft archetypes right now and see what we think of each college in the current state of the format and with the knowledge that we have right now. Any things you guys? Yeah, go ahead.
So basically, Jason will talk and we'll just nod.
No, that's not true. For one thing, I will not be on the hook here for making any predictions, which will be great for me.
Yes.
I don't have to worry about you guys pointing out how bad my predictions were, because mine were pretty bad. I may have hyped up Star People quite a lot.
Yes, same here. So did we. We'll dive in. Yeah, go ahead.
You know, there's this quote from Niels Bohr who said that predictions are very difficult, especially the ones about the future.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yep.
It's a good one. So yeah, that's basically the plan. Happy to have you all here. And indeed, the signposts were definitely a bit of a throw of Setrox, and we definitely took the bait and predicted some very bad archetypes like Spirit Aggro or stuff like that.
I want to be on record that I basically from the beginning said I have no idea what Lorehold does. Probably it does something, but I don't want to even know. It turns out actually Lorehold is way better than I predicted, but that's because I didn't see the archetype that they did.
Yep, indeed.
Because I thought they were rubbish, and they were. It's just that, of course, there was another way of building it that we didn't figure out.
Yep, indeed. Okay, let's dive in. So, as we always do, we want to give credit where credit's due. So Pawel and I are just trash basically, and Jason is good. But
hey, you guys aren't trash. So no, give yourself some credit too.
No, that's true. We're not.
Wait, so
we're average.
Jason is great and very generous also.
Yes, that he is. But no, definitely shouting out the people that we got most of our knowledge from. So here are some great podcasts to check out, some great streamers, content creators. And of course some other resources. Check these people out, follow them on Twitter if you want to get better at draft. We want to get better on draft, so we're following them basically.
You should add Metal Mario's podcast. It's actually quite good.
Sure. We'll do that. Definitely.
Yeah.
I didn't know he had a podcast.
Me neither.
Yeah, me neither. I discovered it by accident because he had an episode about 17 lands data, which was actually very reasonable. And yeah.
Is the intro song a metal song, a Mario song, or a combination of the two?
Don't ask me about details of the music.
Okay.
I only know the Arena Craft podcast music because I really like the intro there.
It's good, yeah. Exclamation mark slide deck, by the way, will give you a link to the file so you can look at the slides and also use the links. I can imagine that by watching this video, it's not very convenient that we put all the links in, but we did.
Sander, before you start, because I'm delayed by 15 seconds to the stream, so is there a way we can see the slides live as you see them?
Definitely. I'll share my screen over Hangouts. Let's see if that's going to work. If that does not work, I'll share my screen over Discord. I'm afraid that it somehow messes up how I see your cameras. Let's see.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Can I get rid of this? It would be so awesome if I could get rid of this.
You could maybe try recropping our cameras in OBS or something.
I would love to not see my own presentation. Why am I seeing my own presentation? That's bollocks. Seriously.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, I'll present over Discord. Ha! I was going to say in before the order of your faces changes somehow. That would have been hilarious. Okay, I'll give you guys a call on. Please mute yourselves on Discord, else it's going to be a mess. I'll add Pawel to the conversation. There you go. And I'll share my screen there.
Okay. So it's back to the classic 3-window solution.
Yes,
You need to mute yourself.
You need to mute yourself, Pawel.
Oh, yeah, damn it.
Yeah, we got it, Jasper. Just figuring out. Professionals here. Yeah, we got it?
Yep.
Awesome. Let's dive in. Okay, so basically to give you guys an ID, we had initial big picture IDs. We had initial big picture for every college. And what we did is we basically gave them a color. We used green if we thought we were spot on, or at least close to spot on. We used blue if they were like lukewarm takes to begin with, like very easy takes or like basically facts we were stating. So blue is basically not very interesting. And then we used orange or red depending on how far we were off basically to mark the ones that we were kind of off on. So I think big picture stuff we were pretty on point. Any things you want to drop here, Pawel or Jason?
I just want to drop that on Discord. For some reason I see still the first slide.
Okay, that's
yeah, same.
It's a good drop. I appreciate the drop. Let's see.
Hot take.
Hot take. That is a hot take. I might have fixed it now. Let me quickly.
Yeah,
They change. They be changing. They be changing.
Okay. We got this. Anything you want to add on the big picture IDs? It's pretty boring because we were pretty spot on, I would say.
I think like just an even bigger emphasis on like lesson learn. Like no matter how much you emphasize lesson learn, I think you could still emphasize it even more.
Yes.
As the most important thing in the format.
So I can add some tidbits about it because I'm writing the lesson and learn analysis for CFB right now, and boy, some of those lessons are just insane.
Insanely broken
in terms of like
win rate.
In terms of win rate increase. I have to calculate the win rate increase slightly differently for that. Maybe I can talk about it when the right time comes. But
sure.
Yeah, they're amazing.
It might be cool to have you on and do like a deep dive in your article at some point.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Would be cool. Would be cool to have a recording of. Okay. Okay. So next up, we dive into the first college, which is Lorehold. And looking at our initial big picture, we were quite off. So let me throw you some statements we made back then. Lorehold is a unique way for the red-white archetype to play out. It is nothing like we have seen before. Well, guess not. Most of what Laurel does is based around a single uncommon payoff, Quintorius. Well, guess not.
Well, it sort of is. It's built around avoiding. Quintorius.
Yes.
Yeah. I think the problem is that you did identify that it's like what it looks like it's trying to do is all around Quintorius. But the problem is when you're trying to rely on a 5-drop that there's only one like uncommon. That's a pretty sketchy game plan.
Exactly.
Well, it did work for rogues in Zendikar.
Yeah.
Where it was like basically built around the 1/3 flyer, whatever its name is.
True.
Sure, but that one is both not legendary and 2 mana.
Yeah, no, and awesome and
yeah, exactly. And as Iggy states, even if you get 2, even if your pick one pack 1 is a Quintorius and your pack 1 pick 2 is a Quintorius, I think the archetype is still bad. Like,
as a caveat, I have to say that my only 7-0 draft in Strixhaven was the double Quintorius Lorehold deck.
that is a big caveat to make. Thanks for that.
But actually, it was not built around Quintorius. It was just there because I needed a 5-drop, and it seemed okay. And I had a couple of things like to activate it, which were mainly like past colors or things. Not really the things that you would expect. I didn't put any whatever those 2/2 dogs that eat stuff from your graveyard are. I just put
the 3 mana 2/2 with haster, you mean?
Yeah, that one. Tome Shredder?
Tome Shredder, yeah.
Yeah, like I think that's the place where you want Quintorius. As like if you have enough synergies with it, you can play it as a fine card. But you shouldn't try to build your deck around it.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Agreed.
Fully agree.
Strong agree.
Okay. Well, another statement that is pretty far off is Lorehold without Quintorius is most likely going to be Spirit Tribal. Apparently we thought it was a thing. Well, it's not. So these were the standout cards we predicted to be important. So again, Quintorius. We thought stuff like Return Pest Caller and Rescuer would be important together with Historian because they enable Quintorius. And we thought it would be kind of a slow controlish deck, or at least slow to generate the value. So we thought stuff like Aegis Guardian would be good. But I think we were pretty far off here, honestly. Like, the 2/1 is fine. The 2/1 is a playable. Return Pest Caller is a great card to splash.
Yeah.
And that's
it's a great card, not in Lorehold.
Indeed. That's it, basically.
I will say that Stonebound Mentor I've still found to be good. Probably not for the reasons like you guys thought of, like, oh, it's a spirit for Spirit Tribal or something.
Right.
But like just a 3/3 body is like surprisingly like just actually lines up well with this format.
Yeah,
in like, the aggressive Lorehold decks.
Which is strange because I don't like it against first years. I don't like it against Lorehold Pledge Mages and stuff. Like, I'm not sure why it is a good body. Like, I get what you're saying, but I hardly ever put it in a deck. I'd rather not play it in my deck than put it in my deck. It's my 23rd playable most of the time.
So it's a good body in aggressive Lorehold decks that are wanting to attack. Like you said, it's not good against Eager First Year or Lorehold Pledge Mage, but mostly it's not good on blocks against those.
Right.
On attacks, when you have tricks, now against all these, like there's a lot of 2Xs in the format, like a lot of 2-power creatures. When you're attacking into like a bunch of 2-power creatures, they're really incentivized to like double block, right? With like 2/2/2s.
Yes, correct.
And then you blow them out with a combat trick. And and then you get a lot of value from that. And that's basically what Lorehold's trying to do. Most of the time or like the best versions of Lorehold I found are just like aggressive decks that really are just leveraging like Grand Greeters and tricks, much more so than like Silverquill.
Yeah.
So I would like to, as yet another caveat, is that I did build an aggro version of Lorehold, which is completely different from what we're talking about. And to be fair, changing several cards for the cheap learn spells, it would be actually probably okay.
You mean at start of the format? Yeah.
Yeah. One of my skeletons was the sort of Lorehold aggro.
Yes.
And I look at it. It had Academic Dispute. It had Eager First Years, Professors of Symbology. It looks all right. I'm not disappointed. It definitely has Tome Shredders, which shouldn't be there and can be exchanged by something else. It definitely has Make Your Mark, which I thought was a better card because when you aggressively attack, you trade your creature and you get another creature for 1 mana. I thought it would be better. In hindsight, it's much better just to play the Guiding
Voice. Whatever. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
that card is
or Study Break. So if you exchange those, that skeleton, I'll put it in the chat, is actually not looking absolutely atrocious. It just looks a bit off, but you can expect it happening when you judge cards completely based on theory crafting.
Talking about atrocious skeletons, here is one we dubbed Spirit Control back in the day, and it's fully on the Quintorius plan basically. It plays a Laurel Excavation, a Thrill Discovery,
The wall.
Yeah, I was like, okay, we were off with Lorehold. Let's show them an archetype that was totally off, and I think this is a very nice example of that. But,
I love that you're saying this is a deck based entirely on this one copy of this one card I have. I have to draw every single game to win.
Basically, I need to draw Quintorius or it's bust. Yeah. Okay, so maybe to dive into the current big picture of Lorehold a bit more, right? Because we already talked about some of the things that Lorehold actually is and some of the cards that are actually good in it, right? So, do you both agree with the statements here? Lorehold is just another variant of red-white aggro. This one leveraging Matecraft triggers to deal sudden bursts of damage.
Yep.
Quintorius is close to unplayable at this point. The whole theme. Sorry, I was trying to write theme. I kind of failed there. Surrounding getting cards out of the graveyard is close to non-existent, right?
Yep.
Well, I mean, the Quintorius theme is not existent, but white control is a real deck, I think. Especially that lots of those cards are non-overlapping with the aggro versions, so you can get them almost for free on the wheel most of the time. So, did you hear the last episode of Sam Black's
Not
podcast?
yet. Not yet, unfortunately.
He talks about white control strictly, and it can be either Lorehold or Silverquill control version, or sort of a blend of it. And
yeah, I think the distinction there is that like white control isn't necessarily really a Lorehold deck, and it also just doesn't use Quintorius either.
No. Quintorius' dream is over. It's just like you can build your deck on expels rather than on the cheap removal, and you can. I had a very nice deck with. Okay, arguably it had two of the Joffrey, which was a bit fortunate. But I basically built like a Mardu version, but heavily Lorehold tinted Mardu deck with this and this weird card that you sacrifice a creature and put counter on something.
Yeah.
So it's basically putting up Joffrey, sacrificing something to something else, making a copy. I think that my favorite one was sacrificing one Joffrey to to the legend rule, then sacrificing the other one to this counter maker and making Joffrey slightly bigger just to go for lethal with haste.
That's hilarious.
Nice. Jasper says in chat, I don't like white control at all, and I do like Quintorius. Okay, yeah, that is funny. That's a bit different.
We're not judgmental. Just
no,
Quintorius doesn't seem to be working very well.
Indeed. Yeah. Maybe to look at some standout cards we, well, in between brackets missed in Lorehold. I think these are some of the more solid comments that I would really like to have in my Lorehold decks. And anything that I missed on this we missed slide, you guys would say?
I would add like you only put 6 cards on each slide.
Right.
So
I basically decided to pick 6, yeah.
But like enthusiastic study is a big one. It really helps with the like whole like do a big burst of damage in one swing with your like Eager First Years and Lorehold Pledge Mages, because like the trample helps push that damage through, so you don't just get like blanked by pests.
Yep, that's totally fair. Yeah, so recent trophy decks. There you have it. Enthusiastic Study ×3. Eager First Years. Basically, a comment that I wanted to make about this deck, because yeah, this is one of mine, is that I basically end up in Lorehold when I open Sig bombs. So here I have a Mavinda, Draconic Intervention, I have a Crackle with power. That's basically how I end up in Lorehold. I'm not sure about what you guys' path is into Lorehold. But if I start opening broken white and red rares, then this is something I consider to build. How is that for you?
My path into Lorehold, as is my path into like basically every deck, is by getting like just learn lesson cards that pull me in. So like if I start with like white learn cards and then I pick up elemental summoning, that'll like make me want to be Lorehold more, so I can play both of those. Or if I see a first day of class early in the pack, I definitely won't take it then, but I'll keep it in mind, and when I wheel it later, I might take it, and like that pulls me into a red aggressive deck, which is most likely to be Lorehold. Same with like enthusiastic studies, sometimes those go later. So basically, like generally how I'm getting into it is like early white aggressive start paired with later red learn lesson cards.
Yeah, I mean, I have a very similar strategy. The only addition is that I study what people like drafting, and I assess the signals from the draft based on what I know people value highly. If I see something late, like I know that people are higher on expel than I am probably. But if I see a very late one, it means that white is probably quite wide open, because I know that people love drafting it in best of one, at least. I know that best of 3 drafters are higher level than on average than best of 1. So maybe you won't get that kind of signaling in best of 3. But if I see something that I know I shouldn't be seeing in that particular spot, I'm thinking, okay, if the college is open, I think that even though Strixhaven colors are not made all equal, I think that if one color is open and you're the only drafter on the pod, you should come out with a really good deck independently of anything. So if I see, especially if white is open, because white is the stronger of the pair, and has the strongest link.
Would expel be a signal for you there, like a late study break?
Yes, it would be.
Okay. For me,
it's not because I value it, and I wouldn't pick that expel, or maybe I would pick it to cut the signaling. But I know that that the users are quite high on expel.
Okay.
And it doesn't really matter what I value; it matters what they value. I mean, this is the reason why in Zendikar I was drafting white every second draft, and over the course of 80 drafts, I've drafted Nahiri's Binding 4 times, because people were valuing it super highly, and I didn't want to have it even in my deck. So I would pick it if it was pick 8, but I never saw it pick 8, and I don't want to waste my 4th pick on something I don't really want to play, so I never drafted it. And here's the same. I mean, some cards are just super highly valued by the players, and if I see them, I know that, okay, if I see that late, it means the color is wide open, and I use it as a sort of signaling kind of proxy.
Okay, interesting. Where are you on expel, Jason?
I also don't think it's very good, but I also agree that's a big signal on Arena. I'm curious, Kristens, where do you think expel ranks in terms of like how highly Arena drafters pick it in best of 1 among white commons? Like,
okay. I'm pretty sure they pick it above Guiding Voice and Study Break.
Okay, but like, how about like other cards like Pilgrim?
Above Pilgrim, because people don't seem to understand the value of Pilgrim. Below Professor, I would say. And what else is there? Above First Year, probably, because I see more First Years than Expels.
Yeah, you are in fact correct. Expel is the 2nd highest picked white common.
That's insane.
The only one above it is Combat Professor. To be fair, Combat Professor is like way above it, and like everything else is just really low. But like people pick Expel super highly.
Yeah, that's savage. Yeah, that's a good statistic to know, right? Because I'm still interpreting like pick 8 study breaks as a signal, but maybe I should stop interpreting it as a signal and just take it for granted that you're getting those cards late.
I mean, the point is that you should evaluate the signal by who is sending them, and not by what you would consider a signal if you would be drafting with yourself. I think that this is the most important.
That's a very good takeaway, Pawel. Yeah, very good addition. Earlier, Jasper mentioned that for him, Lorehold versions, the best Lorehold versions relied on Twin Scroll Shaman and enthusiastic studies, and that's also something that I like, as seen from this picture. I think I have another.
You forgot the 2-drop. You forgot the 2-drop. It's essential for the Twin Scroll Shaman.
Which one?
Decks.
Which one?
The one that gets double strike if you have a Twin Scroll Shaman, of course, because you want that curve out.
Yeah. Thunderous Orator.
Oh yes, Thunderous Orator is good. Yeah, it's a good one indeed. I didn't have it here. I think here's another one of mine. I tried to find decks of you, Jason, but I noticed you weren't sharing all your trophy decks on Twitter, so I weaved some of mine in there as well. I think this one is another bomb rare heavy deck. But basically it shows that I'm going into this archetype if I get the rares. That's it basically. Wanna talk more about Lorehold or dive into the next college?
I think we can move on if
cool.
You guys are ready.
I'm ready. You wanna take this slide, Pawel, or?
Wait, I'm opening multiple. Okay, Silverquill, augmenting your creatures. So basically, the initial idea and the initial, of course, trap idea was that Star Pupil is going to be the pivotal common for Silverquill. It's not, to say very lightly. I mean, it's close to unplayable, even. I would even argue.
Yeah.
So we definitely missed that. But using instant and sorcery to trigger Magecraft, I think that point stands quite well. I don't think it should be read because yes, small creatures augmentation is still working in Silverquill quite well because you will play your, there's a good reason why extended anatomy is one of the most important lessons for the archetype. It's just probably you don't want to waste too many cards in your deck to dedicate to it, and rather than that, depend on the learn lesson package to deliver that kind of effect.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, you still have Guiding Voice, which is basically putting +1/+1 counters on your creatures and more.
I think you wrote about infusion today, right, Jason, or yesterday that was?
Yeah, I wrote about infusion, and yeah, basically I said the same thing there. Roughly, like, yes, +1/+1 counters can be powerful for like reasons listed here, but you also can get super punished by it against like heavy removal decks, and like when you want it, you often will be prioritizing anatomy anyways, and that like covers like enough of the cases where you want it that like you don't need to put Essence Infusion in your deck.
How are you on the Reflective Golem in the Silverquill Tricks deck?
I mean, like I often don't put Reflective Golem in my deck because I often have just better creatures to run. Like generally I'll want basically all of my creatures to fly in Silverquill, which is a thing that we'll definitely get to. But like with enough Guiding Voices and like if I have like a few Guiding Voices in an expanded anatomy, that'll definitely push me towards playing Reflective Golem. But like I don't see it necessarily as like a really important payoff. More like an incidental value of
No. That's exactly what I.
Yeah.
Where would you pick it? Would you pick it over Silverquill Pledge Mage?
Oh, never.
Oh, God, no.
I would always take Silverquill.
Yeah, that was my high bar. I'm going lower from here. Would you pick it over Pilgrim?
I would. So like early on, basically never. Like later on, maybe if I'm like really low to the ground, I would pick. Like if I don't have any rises or any like things that make me like the extra land drops from Pilgrim, I would pick Golem higher.
Okay.
But
then Juke.
Juke. I like Juke. Like I don't know how I like Juke compared to Pilgrim, but I do like Juke more than Golem because again it's a thinger.
Okay, so that are a lot of 3-drops you're taking over the Golem basically, right?
Yeah. That's like my problem with Golem is that it's a fine 3-drop, but also there's a bunch of good 3-drops.
Yeah.
And like I don't need 3-drops in the same way that I'm like prioritizing like 2-drops, for example. I would almost always take a good 2-drop over Golem because I'm always short on them.
Yeah, that was why I was comparing it to other trees, and I think I'm on in the same boat as you. I would probably pick all the 3 mentioned over Golem. Yeah.
I don't think I would pick Pilgrim over it.
Oh, okay. Pilgrim
but
is
it's just
insane.
I don't like the. I know, but I don't like my game to last so long that I actually have 6 mana to return it. That's like that's not. It's already against my plan, like per definition. While Golem is exactly on my plan, which means play chaotically and kill the opponent from nowhere.
Yeah, I guess my caveat for like when I was saying I would always pick Pilgrim early and usually pick it late unless I am relatively low to the ground. Basically, what I'm saying there is sometimes I will often end up in Silverquill decks that do want to play like Rise of Exodus and get to 6 mana. So in those decks, I would pick Pilgrim over Golem. But like if I in fact don't have any Rise of Ecstasies, if I'm in fact very very low to the ground, I would pick Golem. Yeah.
Yes, because Golem also interacts better with a low to the ground deck than a non low to the ground deck, right? It just simply interacts very good with low mana spells, low CMC spells.
For me, this is the curve topper of a very aggressive deck, basically, because I just like the eternal problem of those type of decks is that you just run out of steam and that's it, and then you play a Golem. Next turn, you just play the Guiding Voice for 2 cards and you put 2 Inklings in your hand, and you will never run out of steam this game.
Yeah, agree. Jasper in chat says, that's funny because I take Golem over all of those. Okay, that's interesting. Preferring my curve to end at 4, running 14 to 15 lands. Yeah, see Jasper, I'm just not building Silverquill that way. Like honestly, I thought Silverquill was a 16 land deck, but now I kind of have the feeling that I never play less than 17 due to the learn and lesson stuff. I basically never run out of spells. How's that for you guys?
Especially with the golem, I would like to have more lands just to be able to use the ability efficiently. I don't want to be stuck with the spell and then not be able to play it with the bonus because I don't have enough mana.
Yeah, I'm also almost never playing less than 17 lands in like basically any deck really because of like how powerful Learn Lesson is and how much I'm prioritizing it. Like one of my problems with Golem, which I think makes me pick it lower than other people, is that my decks often tend to not be as low to the ground because I'm assuming, oh, I'm going to get a bunch of Learn and Lesson. So because of that, I can afford to try to go bigger, be able to play a longer game. And so I don't need Golem necessarily for to like get more out of my spells.
I think that this is something we touched on in the previous stream, that I play like I play because I play loosely, and because I play loosely, I want the game to finish quickly because I know that the longer the game plays, the probability of me making some rubbish mistake is approaching 1. And because of that, I want to finish the games as quickly as possible to avoid making a mistake and to win in this way. It's a risky strategy, but I know my weaknesses and I try to play into them.
Yeah.
And I know that you're an excellent technical player, so you can afford for yourself to play a more grinding, longer game. And because you will not make this mistake, you will not attack into this reach guy after 15 times of not attacking into this reach guy, which is my problem because I click space too fast.
Yeah, that is a completely fair point. And like I there are in fact like a lot of different ways you can draft that are like all that can all be successful in their own ways, and like having preferences is often like just correct because like people are better at different things often.
Yeah, fully agree. Okay, that was a nice sidewalk, I guess, touching on the golem. I think we touched most of the points here, so let's dive into the cards we thought that would be good.
Oh, one point I want to touch on here.
Yeah, go ahead.
It is therefore unlikely you are making a lot of Inklings. I think you guys maybe underestimated a bit how much Learn Lesson would help that a lot.
Yes, and what I also underestimated is how high I was picking Inkling Summoning. Because currently I'm picking it like B plus level, and we were estimating it would be like a B minus C plus level card. So that also makes for way much more Inkling Summonings in the decks that I'm running, right?
Yeah. You know, the part of this was probably that I work under the assumption that there are on average 2 Inkling Summonings per pod.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't expect that it would be so easy to pluck 3.
Yeah, that they would wheel both. Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think we're approaching that moment where actually Inkling Summoning becomes a problem.
Yeah. I think probably if we played on like Magic Online instead of Arena, then we would have different opinions about like how
likely it is.
You can get 2 Inkling Summonings.
Okay, do you want to have some numbers on Inkling Summoning?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
So first thing is that Silverquill decks that have Inkling Summoning in sideboard are having roughly 3.5% more wins than the ones that don't. Which is big because that's just having it in the sideboard. It's not when you draw it or anything. Just having it in the sideboard, these decks have an average 3.5 percentage point higher win rate. And Silverquill decks that have it in the sideboard draw it in 56% of the games.
Okay, that's pretty. That's low, I think, for my
56% of the games. If you have a card in your deck, your average will be around 30%. For Silverquill decks, I think the average drawing of a card, if you have one in a copy in your deck, will be 27% based on how long the games take when Silverquill is involved.
Yeah, but is it dry? Is it dried or fetching it from the side?
Yeah, well, I mean, how big an advantage Inkling Summoning has over just putting a card in your deck? So you basically have it in your hand twice as often as you would.
Yeah, right.
If you would only rely on drawing it in.
But the situation needs to be very interesting for me not to take the 2/1 as my first learn. Like basically when I have an Inkling summoning in the side, my first learn is the Inkling.
Well, you know, there will be games where you don't draw your learn spells.
Yeah, also there's games where you like need to get environmental sciences. There's games where like expanded anatomy is really important, like much better than Inkling summoning in like your specific situation. I think Inkling summoning is generally like my default. Like I'm not sure which will be best.
Exactly.
So I'm just going to get Inkling summoning.
Exactly. If you learn on 2, it's mostly a 2/1 Inkling, right? And because you hardly have any information. If you have the lands, I'll take the 2/1 flyer anytime.
But just to give you the background, so the highest result in any archetype of any card is Mascot Exhibition, and that's in Quandrix, it's taken from sideboard 67% of the time if you have it in Quandrix decks, which makes sense because the games there take longer, so you'll get to those 7 lands and you play.
More.
But that's the absolute highest of all the cards. So you still in 1/3 of the games you will not get Mascot Exhibition, A, because you were dead before it happens, or B, because you don't draw your learn, or C, because you don't need it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Let's move ahead. Quick run at the standout cards in the archetype. Okay, there's the reflective golem. I put a green correct marker around it, but after our discussion, I might be on a blue minus here. Star Pupil, Essence Infusion, I think were pretty big misses. I think you were on warning over Infusion as well, right, Jason?
Yeah. I like did a whole Twitter thread on Infusion last night. And I do like Infusion out of the sideboard and like as sometimes a main deck card, but I definitely like Warning more as just like a much more solid effect that you like want in all matchups.
I also think that it will be significantly weaker in best of 3 than in best of 1, don't you think?
Which one? Warning or Infusion?
Infusion.
Oh, I actually think the opposite because you can side it in.
Indeed.
Yeah, no, as a side-in thing, yes. But I mean, the point is you cannot like play it as a reliable plan because the opponent in second game will be ready for the turn 1/1 drop, turn 2 Infusion, and if they play well, they will play around it, sort of.
Yeah. Like I agree that in best of 3, its main deck value goes down, but its side like having it keeping it in your deck goes down in value possibly, but bringing it in from the sideboard goes up in value.
Yeah, no, I think that's excellent point when you play against some, you see some grindy kind of Prismari or Timur deck, and you just 1/2 them quickly with the ingredient into Infusion, and they basically are dead.
No, I think those are the games when you board it out. I think you need the Infusion if you have an aggressive opponent and you're likely to raise. As soon as they have blue in their mana base, I board it out, basically.
Yeah, the blue is the problem.
Because they're going to bury it, yeah.
Yeah, I generally board it, I generally like it in racing matchups and in matchups where my opponent doesn't have like a lot of hard removal. Like Barry is one especially that's Infusion's really bad against.
Yes.
That's what I basically did yesterday in the challenge. But I did it by playing the sort of version of this deck, but in Weatherbloom. And then I had Snakeskin Veil to protect my stuff from the bounce effects with the golem. That's a good combo as well.
Yeah, that definitely helps for sure. Okay, so our initial draft archetype, we always the max amount of comments the max amount of the same comments we use is 2. So that's the reason why you see 2 Star Pupils here. We would have probably put more into the deck if we could. Yeah, so we were thinking that Silverquill was going to be this low to the ground, lots of tricks, Star Pupil deck that needed a reflective golem basically. I think we were still, it was hard to miss on this archetype, right? It was going to be aggressive and a lot of the cards we picked here were obviously good, but I think we still missed on that Star Pupil Infusion.
Yeah, Pupil definitely was a big miss. Mine doesn't have a golem though.
That's it.
I suspect,
but I do have Dueling Coach, which is even suckier.
I think this deck would still do good, right? I think this deck could probably still trophy.
That still looks decent. I'm curious. I'd be curious to see like what Star People's stats would be on Magic Online. I know there aren't like official. There isn't anyone collecting stats on Magic Online, but I'd be interested in seeing if like Star People does better in formats with if the format had less like lesson learn in it. I could see that happening, but yeah, I think the big miss here is missing on just how important flying is.
Yes.
To Silverquill decks, and like how much of a density of flyers you can get, and like that being like a really hard thing for your opponent to deal with.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. Setrox in chat asks, sorry, Pawel, do you ever end up in 16 land Silverquill these days? Like I don't. A hard no for me. You, Pawel, Jason?
I never end on Silverquill point.
Okay. Jason?
I never end up in 16 land decks.
Yeah, me neither.
Oh wait, no. Let's check. So I had a trophy deck. It had 17 lands.
Yeah.
And had Rise of X, two closing statements, Olin Shield Mage, Silverquill Command, and 2 combat professors. You don't want to play 16 lands with those.
No, indeed. And that's similar to most of my top ends in Silverquill decks. Like heavy on the 5s, a 6 from time to time. Yeah, it's very recognizable.
Yeah, no, I'm looking through my Silverquill. I didn't draft that much Strixhaven, to be fair.
My second last draft challenge deck, I actually played 16 lands, plus 2 campus guides and a letter of acceptance.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
A pilgrim. So it was technically 16 lands, but like realistically, it was more. I wanted to play like more fixing.
Yeah.
And didn't want like as many mana sources.
Actually, does it make sense to play like 1 campus guide instead of 17th land in a sort of more aggressive version of? Because it's basically a land if you need one a turn later, mind you.
So I think the problem with doing that is that a 2/1, like just a straight 2/1 no ability,
it doesn't fly.
Yeah, it doesn't fly basically, right? Like my deck was not the deck I was playing it in was a Mardu deck that wasn't really an aggressive flyers deck. It was like grind them out, learn.
Wait, let me guess. It was a Mardu deck and it had reconstruct history in it.
It did not. I was very sad.
Oh,
big miss.
Because that's what I think. That campus guide is great when you have reconstruct history, because 2/1 is not good, but 2/1 that you can play twice, that's already all right.
Yeah. 2/1
plus you can find your fixing.
Yeah, 2/1 is great when it can fix you, trade off against aggro decks, and then be rebought later as like another just piece of material to use.
Yeah,
I think in those Mardu decks I have the same with the Biblioplex Assistant, and having like, play Heated Debate, rebuy the Heated Debate, replay the Heated Debate, chump block with the Biblioplex Assistant, play Reconstruct the History, and start it from the beginning.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Quick look at the current big picture. I think we covered most of it. So, win by overwhelming their opponents with flying threats. I think you fully agreed there already, Jason, that's the way they win. And this second statement is related to the 16 land question. So, in my opinion, due to Learn Lesson plus some very decent 4 and 5 drop flyers, the deck feels mid-range basically, and rarely plays less than 17 lands.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that there is a ground version of Silverquill that will depend on Killians and the Silverquill apprentices, and maybe a clever Lumimancer and like super hyper aggro version of it, basically.
A lot of first years.
I agree that version of the deck exists. I think it just comes together.
Oh yeah, very rarely. Yeah.
Agree.
And in those decks, I would like Star Peoples. Honestly, I would want to go Star People into Essence Infusion more often. But
yeah, exactly. But I think that the problem with this deck is that people are higher on Lumimancer than they should be.
Yeah. I always think that I'm going to wield a Lumimancer because I feel like I'm drafting the only deck that should want Lumimancer, but then I never do it, and it's horrible.
You already have your plum. You're ready for that, and no. Someone really spoils the fun. Oh, this list I very much agree with the small addition that 2 drops are very important.
Yeah.
I have let's see. I wanted to throw this deck. Yeah, so 2-drops are very important indeed, and
but they are very replaceable. I mean, they don't really change much. I mean, Killian is insane, of course, but
yeah. Also, Order is really good as well because it's a 2-drop flyer, like a very good 2-drop flyer. Poet, I also like more than the rest of the 2-drops because it has flying, but though you can't like have too many of them. But yeah, the 2-drops are mostly there to just get your opponent's life total down early.
Exactly.
Indeed. I quickly wanted to show a deck that I had here because you mentioned the Lumimancer. So this deck, a friend of mine six-toed the he six-toed the draft challenge with this list. It's just pretty amazing. So it has 4 clever Luminancers. And basically after that he just decided to put every spell in the deck that he had at that point. So he's running 4 specimens, 3 guiding voices, 2 infusions, study break, eliminate. Like basically the only non-spell creature in the 2-drop is Killian and the professor. The rest are just spells. Then there's a Pledge Mage and a Trudge. I'm not fully getting the Trudge include here, but hey.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely didn't like his eager first years in that deck.
Right, I was saying trade out the Trudge for the eager first year, but he stick to the plan. And then there's Crushing Disappointment. So another 3 spells in the 4-drop slot, and then just a great 5-drop. This was awesome. This 6-1, by the way.
Yeah, no.
This deck looks really good.
Yeah.
Like just look at the 1-drop slot, and you can already tell that this deck is really good.
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you start Lumimancer into Lumimancer, and then Guided Voice something, you're good. You're good.
Yeah, I wanted to share that quickly. So I know that you made here 2-drops are missing. Yeah, definitely. But they are.
Well, yeah, no, but they are missing, I think, and it's a feature, not a bug. I think, yeah, again, they are very replaceable. You just need 2-drops to deal early damage.
Yeah, and I think I wanted to highlight the thing regarding the flyers here that Jason already mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Oh no, that's for me the discovery of this format is because I sort of expected Combat Professor to be amazingly good because a 3/3 Vigilance flyer is just good. And if it can do something else apart from that, that's also good. What surprised me is Spectre of Defense. I mean, sometimes I just play against a deck and I know that I just have to not tap Spectre of Defense and I won this game because they have expels and I don't care about the rest.
Yeah, fully agree.
It will grind them out. They don't have a power to kill me it's quick enough. And I'll just ping them with the Spectre of Defense until they're dead.
Have you lived the life already where you had, due to playing, I had this deck that played like 2 or 3 Pilgrims, so at some point I just had 12 lands into play or even more, and I was able to activate it twice and my opponent was trying to race me. That was insane. Like then you're living you're living the dream basically.
So yesterday I had the pleasure of activating not Spectre of Defense but this dual face green-blue card that has the front side is green and it's a 2/2 that can make fractals for 5 mana.
Yeah, that's very good.
So I had a pleasure of doing that 3 times a turn, and I was making 3/3 fractals a turn.
Nice.
It was good.
That's good. Yes.
I've seen 16 Reckless Amplimancers before.
Nice. Yes.
Too.
That's also sweet. 4 into 8 into 16. Yeah, that's sweet. 50 mana, just right there. Nice.
Just one counter missing. Just one.
This is one of yours, Jason.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a bit more ground creatures than normal.
Yep.
But just like 3 eager first years, plus like a bunch of like learn lesson made the deck pretty good at like pushing through on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, this is another thing coming from the learn lesson. It's just that better players have much more lesson and much more learn in their decks and sideboards. It's a big difference. Like 60+% win rates, people have around 5 lessons, and people with under 45% win rate will have around 4 lessons. So
take your lessons, peeps.
Yep.
It'll improve your win rate.
No, don't take your lessons. Improve my win rate. And that's the take-home message.
It's also interesting to see how easy it is to splash, right? Even in these decks, splashing an Igneous Inspiration. Basically, I'm jamming this card whenever I see it. Doesn't really matter in which colors I am at that point. Igneous Inspiration goes into the deck.
Yeah, the environmental sciences is really key with all of my learn.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to point out about this deck is that it's like fairly grindy with like 2 Spiteful Squads and 2 Rise of Exodus and 2 Pilgrims.
Yep.
Like that just lets it play the long game super well, and it did in fact win most games by like going long.
Yeah, that's an interesting feature as well. Yeah, like it. I think I had one more Silverquill deck. This one by T. Jordan, and I think this one really nicely highlights the flyer top end with the quadruple professor, the Spectre.
Yeah, that very nicely shows the flying top end when you have a quadruple professors and mascot exhibition.
Indeed, it was a sick one.
Yeah,
it was a little brag. Yeah, this is a sweet looking deck. Double orator as well. This one is just insane.
Yeah, any deck with 4 professors is going to be pretty great.
Pretty great. Yeah, agree. Fully agree.
And just Killian and Professor just to, like, if your Thunderous Orators are the 3rd and 4th best 2-drop in your deck, you're good.
Yes. and if they attack with Flying, Vigilance, Lifelink, Menace, that's also pretty good.
Yeah. And they are a 3/2 because why not?
Yes, why not, indeed. Witherbloom, let's go.
Oh boy, I have a lot of stuff to say about this one when we get to like our current big picture.
Sure. Then let's go over our initial big picture quickly, and then talk about the current one a bit more. So initial big picture was it needs life gain, a sacrifice, and pests are probably very good because they are in the intersection between life gain and sacrifice, right? So we felt like pests were pretty important. We noticed that life gain is relevant only if your deck has the right commons. So I think we were already on the path of if your deck has a couple of the 2/2 menace, the 3-drop 2/2 menaces, the blood researchers that get bigger when you gain life, then life gain is probably relevant. If not, it probably isn't really relevant. And then we had some lukewarm takes regarding pests and, well, whatever. So we thought that Hunt for Specimens into Biograph, or like Professor Biograph, the 1/1, stuff like that was going to be important. We also thought that Unwilling Ingredient was good because of that. We thought Ingredient into Growth was a very nice 1-2 punch. Having we lived the dream of having a 5/4 on turn 2 basically, and I think that also influenced our initial archetypes quite a bit. So I think that's what you're seeing here. Well, Professor is just sick. Hunt is just very sick. Best Summoning is good. And well, I think Ingredient by now, I'm picking this card very low. How are you on Ingredient right now, Pawel or Jason?
Yeah, I like almost never put Ingredient into my deck. Like I would, the most common, I think the best home for Ingredients is Black-Red.
Black-Red, because you have the sacrifice outlet then, or what is it?
Because Black-Red, I think, is a flavor of aggro that wants to utilize like having the Steel and Sack combo with Mascot Interception and like Village Rites or something like that. So Ingredient can fit there. Also, Ingredient works well with First Day of Class.
Yep.
The 2/2 menace becomes much better than the 1/1 menace. And also, like, Ingredient is actually pretty fine with Enthusiastic Study as well, both because like you can block with it and get value that way, and like kill something with 4 toughness, or sometimes you just attack with it. Like it looks like a chump attack. I'm trying to draw a card, and then your opponent blocks it, and then double blocks it, and you cast Enthusiastic Study and like kill one of their creatures for basically free.
Yep.
So like you can cast Big Play. You don't need red for that.
But like basically the reason why I say it's best in a Black-Red deck is because Black-Red like has fewer tools like Ingredient. Basically like Black-Red needs more needs to scrape the bottom of the barrel more often.
Yeah, agree.
And it does have some legitimate synergies.
Jasper mentions that he likes ingredient much more in Silverquill than Witherbloom because it can carry the counters. So I think Jasper is living a bit of the ingredient infusion dream there still. Is that something that you consider?
Well, if it works for him.
Yeah, I'm not against it. I'm just wondering whether that's something that you guys still use, because I was also on that early in the format, but I came off of it basically.
I just checked, and my last Witherbloom trophy deck had both Unwilling Ingredient and Biograph. But
so you're still on it then.
I'm not living that dream, definitely. I had the Growth because I needed one bigger creature, basically, and I had the Unwilling Ingredient because it was useful because I had lots of Deadly Brews and I wanted to sacrifice something irrelevant that I can reuse. And that deck was... So I think that maybe underestimated part of the build of Witherbloom is it has really good two colored mana spells, like both the infusion, Tend the Pests, and the what's the name?
Yeah, that's
Deadly Brew.
That's a good one. It's actually good with Tend the Pest, right?
Well, no, with Tend the Pest is not. Biograph, you know what is the card that is the best with?
Go ahead.
The stupid mythic, the 3 mana and X. Look for 4 spells with casting cost X, because it's a 2-drop technically. I mean, you will never get it. You will never get it onto play, but you can play it for 4 and look for the 2 good 4-drops. This as a 2-drop and then something else, and the opponent will have a problem. But the point is, if more creatures like this are going to be printed in green, then that card actually might be the new collective company and constructed, when you can have actually choice of 4 different 2-drops that are actually 7-drops. Now the card becomes pretty good. Yeah, Ecological Appreciation, that's the one.
Thanks for Curio Blue. That was a good addition. Yeah, Jasper, that was not meant harsh at all. That was just checking with Jason and Pawel whether they were using similar card combinations.
Yeah, for me, I do like Unwilling Ingredient in the low to the ground Essence Infusion on my ground creatures plan.
Yeah.
But like I said before, for Silverquill, that's just not where I end up usually.
Yeah, agree. Infusion on iTwitch is also insane, by the way. I used that a couple of times as well. Yeah, similar to Ingredient. It's just nice to have an evasive 3/3 on turn 2, but it does put you open to removal in a big way. Yeah, so this is one of our initial draft archetypes. It contains 2 Blood Researchers and a Dina, so this was definitely living both the Biograph iTwitch ingredient plan,
also the Woe Eater plan.
Yeah, it was the Wombo plus the life gain, yeah, basically. And I currently I'm hardly ever drafting these decks, to be honest. Like I'm hardly ever ending up in a deck that looks like this.
I still like the idea of them, so I try it once in a while. I think with Demogoth Woe Eater, I basically learned that this card is actually a very good fog. It's like 4 mana, stop attacks from your opponent for 1 turn, gain 2 life, they discard a card and you draw a card. Great card.
I like it as well, yes. But I like it more in Sealed than in Draft. Like in Sealed, I put it in most of my decks, honestly.
The problem is that it doesn't stop flyers.
Yeah.
No, that's big play.
Big play.
Again.
This card is crucial. Why is nobody onto this?
Yeah, I do think, I will say, I do think this is a good, almost a good draft archetype for Witherbloom, except that you're playing some of the bad cards. Namely, I think everything, this includes, most of what I would want in Witherbloom, but it also includes, Unwilling Ingredient, Bayou. Those Grafts are, kind of fine if you have enough pests. Dina, I don't like Springmane Servant and the Woe Eater or the Carrick, but or the Dissector. I just noticed the Dissector. I really don't like the Dissector, but other than that, it has a good core to it of you want to play big creatures and things like Tend the Pests infused with Vitality.
Yeah, I agree. I am pretty proud of us noticing the Hunt to Specimens into Necrotic Fumes combo this early in the format, because that's really strong. So I'm happy we've noticed it early. Okay, you want to take this one then, Jason?
Yeah, sure. So like I was saying when I was like examining your archetype skeleton, so it looked like it was Witherbloom was going to be like really synergistic with all this life gain, sacrifice, combo stuff, but it turns out that like a bunch of that combo stuff is like doesn't come together enough to make it worth it, and like that's a common theme throughout Strixhaven, really, of like all of the things that look like they should be synergies that you should lean into, like Quintorius or like +1/+1 counters, like the college synergies, are just much worse than all the like just like doing learn lesson and never running out of cards.
Yeah.
So like I tend not to like playing things like Bayou Graph, Dina, and Woeder, and like ingredient things like that. Though Graph is, I think, Graph and Woeder can fit in some decks much better. But instead, what I like doing in Witherbloom is kind of leveraging large creatures that need to be double blocked, and then you also pair with that like tricks to save them, specifically infused with Vitality is really good. And also tend the pests to leverage your to like protect your creatures against removal. Like if you've gotten them damage and then later your opponent tries to remove your like 5/5, you sack it to tend the pest. Now you have 5 pests, and if they're like low on life, going wide can really finish them off. And like pests to go wide really really helps augment the strategy of like if you have large creatures that your opponent wants to double block, they're much less they can much less easily deal with your pests as well, right? Like if I have a 5/5 and they need to double block that, now they can't like kill an additional pest if I also attack with my pests. And sometimes I do just want to like keep alphaing if I have enough stuff on board. And another thing is just Witherbloom has a lot of life gain just incidentally to race. Like I'm not saying like intentionally, I don't even know what like pure life gain spells are in the format, but like a bunch of random stuff like infuse with vitality gains 2 life, cram session gains 4 life and is good, pests just randomly gain a life, overgrown arch gains a life every turn and is good if you have blood researchers, things like that. Like Witherbloom Pledge Mage gaining a life on Magecraft, that all just like helps you race the aggressive like Lorehold or Silverquill decks while beating them down with big creatures on the ground. And so with all of that combined, you get basically what's like a stompy deck that you just like want to like beat them down with big creatures, and after they like find a way to deal with those big creatures, you want to be like left with a bunch of pests to finish the game. Is generally how my Witherbloom decks have played out. And also, yeah, Fortifying Draft is really good as well as just like a really solid combat trick.
Card.
Yeah.
Did you, because you played many more drafts than I did, did you ever live the dream of playing the Fortifying Draft with the Weather the Storm?
I have not yet, but there was a game where it was complete overkill, but I had a like large fractal with a Poet's Quill equipped to it. So it had lifelink, and it was a very large fractal. And I had Mage Duel to kill their last blocker, then 2 Fortifying Drafts after that to make my large fractal like roughly infinitely big.
So I was playing a mirror against Icky yesterday, and he also played Witherbloom, and I dealt him 45 damage, and he ended at 17, I think. That of course the Poet's Quill was involved because that card is just busted. But I think that you know what comes out from your assessment, it's just basically Witherbloom should be thought of as a slow aggro, but what it lacks in speed, it gains in resilience and the ability to race because of the life gain.
Yeah, basically. Like you are a bit slower to start than Silverquill and Lorehold, but you do have some solid beaters early, like Leech Fanatic fits into the plan with like getting life and such, as well as just like backing up with solid creatures at like Blood Researcher on 3, Professor of Zoomancy on 4, Witherbloom Pledge Mage on 5. All of this just affects the board so much, like you're putting a lot of stats on the board every single turn, that eventually you stabilize, you like prevent them from killing you with your life gain, and then they can't overcome your board.
Yeah. Like
So out of curiosity, what is your take on the Demogoth Titan? Because the Woe Eater is not great, but the Titan, it's a different animal altogether. I thought, and I would be curious if you.
I definitely like Titan more than Woe Eater. Like, because you just get a lot more agency in how you decide to use it, right? Like you can just like not attack or block with it until you like get a couple pests on the board or something.
Yeah. But my point is also like for opponent, they really need to play around it, because you blink and you are facing 11 to the face, or you keep it on the board a bit too long. Someone has 10 to pests, which usually people that have a Woe Eater will have 10 to pests somehow, and you are dealing with 11 1/1s.
Yeah. Like I think Demogoth Titan mostly does what Woe Eater does, but like much better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think Woe Eater can be fine. I would play it if I had like enough pests, like 2 hunts, at least one pest summoning, and also like 2 professors or something. But yeah, basically, if you have enough synergy with those cards, they can be very good. But sometimes they don't get there.
Yeah. But so Jasper in chat is saying I like the uncommon better. But the reason I like the rare more, and maybe we should highlight this a bit more, is that you're not forced to sacrifice something. So if you have a 1/1 and an 11/11 or 11/10 it is, right? You can just leave the board like that, and you're never forced to actually sack the 1/1 until they make an attack. And with the Woe Eater, you're constantly in need of sacrifice fodder. That's why I like the rare better.
Yeah.
By the way, I cannot stress how much I hate Wizards for making it 11/10 and not a 10/10, the bastards.
But it does not play with the Symmetrist well. They did that on purpose.
Yeah, like, no, I know. That's why I hate them for doing it. I found one workaround, and that's playing Mage Duel on it.
Nice! Mage Duel!
Before attacking.
That is insane! That's a combo.
There's like so many cards in the set that like have uneven stats so that they don't work with Symmetrist. And like I think Mage Duel is another one where like it gives +1/+2 instead of +1/+1. I think partially so that it doesn't work with Symmetrist. Yes. I swear. But yes, Mage Duel on the 11/10 does cancel those out.
Yeah, that's sweet. That's sweet. Anything else here, Jason? Before we
I guess I kind of just want to stress again, like infuse with vitality. I just like really like with like when you have like a blood research, for example, blood researcher, they'll often want to double block it to get it off the board. Like even as a 2/2, right? Like they might double block it with 2 2/2s to like just trade 1 for 1, and then your infuse like really blows them out. It kills both of their creatures, and you keep your blood researcher. Plus also like the life gain synergizes with blood researcher if you're using it on a different creature and your blood researcher isn't dying. And also like Witherbloom Pledge Mage is another big one that like 5/5 is just so large in this format that it's almost always going to have to be double blocked. And like Professor of Zoomancy sometimes does get single blocks by like a 3/2 or a 3/3, but sometimes it gets double blocked, and also just even if it gets single blocked, you do get an extra pest out of it. So it like Infuse just works so well with everything that Witherbloom wants to do and a bunch of its best cards.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Also, good point on the 5/5 there. The Pledge Mage, I think that card is insane.
Oh yeah.
In Quandrix and Silverquill and Witherbloom, doesn't really matter where you put it. You can play it.
I do like it less in Silverquill because again it doesn't have time.
But it's definitely playable there. Like I had Silverquill decks that played 1 because I was just
it's playable.
Also, I mean, maybe it's the case of me being extremely fortunate, or if anything, but Callous Blood Mage, I have never had a problem drafting this card, and it's really solid in those Witherbloom decks. It just does everything you want to do, and it has modality to follow it up.
Yeah, but there are.
I had decks with 2 of them. I mean,
there are a lot of uncommons I would take over that card, though.
Yeah, I do think that I actually think that I draft it less than other people do because it's kind of just a like it's a card that isn't a bomb or anything. It's a solid rate, but I would take like Kirsten said, I would take a lot of uncommons over it. And I think people do tend to draft it higher because it's rare. I agree, very good, but like
for me it's exactly this. It's a very, very solid uncommon level card, and actually I love when rares are on this level because you just feel like playing with fair cards. It's just that I found the versatility of this thing just amazing. I love it in terms of how it plays, not exactly at its power level.
It blows my mind that
it does a lot.
It blows my mind that it does not give you the option to learn. Like that just blows my mind.
It would be busted, wouldn't it? Oh, you can lose a life and draw a card, or
learn,
or just draw a card.
It's a 2/1
and you can
that
choose
learns.
which you draw.
I mean, at uncommon we have a 3/3 drop that deals 3 and lets you learn. How is it not fair to have a 2/1 that lets you learn for 3 mana? I mean, we have a 2/1 in white that makes you learn.
I think probably it would be like a bit too similar to Professor of Symbology in that case. Like, it feels kind of weird to have 2 cards where like theoretically you can do the exact same thing with them.
but what's a better card, Professor or the rare?
Like, you also have to.
I'm not saying that like it wouldn't mean that like I'm not saying that one would be like strictly better or anything. And that there wouldn't be interesting dynamics there between how good they are. But I'm just saying it would be a bit weird to have 2 cards that do like almost exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
and
that's
also
true.
you have to keep in mind that it's a plant for constructed for the Innistrad because it's a vampire. So
yeah,
I assume that its role is to fit with some Innistrad mechanics, which learning might not necessarily be it for that.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. But they could have added the option, right? That would have not made it worse for constructed, but it would have made it better for limited, I would say. But who cares? Who cares? Okay, anything else?
Play more Witherbloom. It's not as bad as people think.
Play more Witherbloom.
Play Witherbloom, but just don't play the bad cards.
Yeah. Oh, maybe something that you did not highlight, but that is a bit of my my stance on Witherbloom, is that it's a great backdoor. When I'm drafting Quandrix, I like to backdoor into Witherbloom, and for me, a lot of Witherbloom decks are just wannabe Quandrix decks. Like they ramp, they have removal, and they play big fractals basically, but then with slightly different cards than my Quandrix cards would do it. But that's how I approach Witherbloom, and I like your take, but it's a different approach. So we basically have different approaches to Witherbloom, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's how it should be.
Yeah, that's how it should be, and that also makes the standout cards like Jason added Infuse and I added Colony and Field Trip, right? Because we have different ideas of how our Witherbloom decks play, basically.
Yeah, to be fair, I do also like Colony and Field Trip in like my versions of Witherbloom, because like Field Trip's a learn card and Colony is just a very good 2-drop.
Of course,
but,
of course.
I do think they are less good in the version I described than what you described of like as backdoor Quandrix.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, okay. Cool. So let's look at some recent trophy decks. So here's one of you, Jason, with a sweet primal commands.
Yeah, this one you can see I have some combos here with Tend the Pests and First Day of Class and Mascot Interception. Like, Tend the Pest was very, very good in this deck.
Oh god! So this is one thing that I wanted to say during the Witherbloom that is missing from it. It would be so much better if you had just a green spell that all your creature get +1/+0 till the end of turn or something like that, because at least you would have any incentive on getting wide. And right now you just end up with 7 pests that get blocked by 7 2/2s, and that's it.
Right.
I mean, I think that like I think if it had that might be a bit too good actually, because I think you can go wide enough in green that like even without a pump spell, like I think the dynamic that I described is like, oh, you're playing a bunch of big creatures that often want to be double blocked, so you're often like trading in such a way that makes your board bigger and their board smaller, and that like lends itself enough to go wide that I'm often finding myself finishing off with Tend to Pest anyways.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I very often have this finishing. They are at 4 life. I attack with something and 3 pests. They block the big something, and then next turn I still have 3 pests, and that finishes the game.
Yeah. Also, Mercurio points
Yeah.
out could splash for defend, which is valid. I could maybe see. Yeah, that could actually be pretty good in some.
Aye, that's a tech. I actually will keep a lookout on that.
Yeah,
one,
definitely.
Because
especially if
it's
you
easy to splash. Yeah.
indeed, and
Yeah,
if you pick up a white rare along the way or something, that's definitely
And also,
good one.
imagine that you attack with your 5/5. They block with their 2/4/4s, and you just blow them out.
Yep, it works.
Yep.
Nice tech. I like it. Let's see if I
Yeah,
have another one.
Red is a really good splash in these decks for those 2 cards specifically. Mascot Interception and First Day of Class.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Mascot Intervention is the most obscene card in this format.
Yeah. Can we talk for a sec about the fact that I made the Channel Fireball top 5 with that card? Did you see that, Jason?
What specific clip was it? I forget.
Oh, it's not that important, but it was so good that I sent it in for the MTG top 5 from Channel Fireball, and it actually made it. So I had a 2/1. I had the 2/1 artifact creature on the board, and my opponent had 2 8/8s, and they were on like 16 or something, 15 or 16.
Did you copy a Mascot Interception?
No, I actually took the interception, guided voiced one of my creatures, got the white rare lesson that makes a creature unable to block for a turn, so that got rid of their 8/8. So at that point I had like 11 power on the board, and then I added 2 with my hexproof trick or something, so that was like 13 damage. Oh, but 13 plus the 2 from the interception was like 15, and they were on 14. So I won from a board state where they had 2 8/8s, were on 14 life, and I had a 2/1. That was epic. Yeah. And
this format has some pretty crazy, like, oops, you're dead out of nowhere.
There's so many of those, and I know that some people hate that, like GS hates that. Which is why he was playing a lot of Constructed recently. But I love those. I love those wins. Like, if my opponent... I had an opponent recently who was splashing Mizzix Mastery, and he actually savaged me with it. Like, sure, go ahead, you get this win. Here you have your Witherbloom deck splashing red. Yeah, like, go ahead.
But not for me.
Not for me, no. I can take those losses. I'm fine with those.
I have to say that I finished more than one game with copying Mascot Interception and then targeting the first targeting a fractal and the second one targeting a real creature. So for 3 mana, I just killed them with nowhere.
Yeah, I love those. I'm very happy with those wins. They taste very sweet. And, I like that. Let's see. I think we dive into the. Oh, I had one more. I had one more by Jason. This one showing the power.
I
of
love
Pledge,
this one.
Yeah, Pledge Mage Researcher.
Yeah.
Double
this
infuse.
is like every game Pledge Mage and Researcher.
Right.
Just a casual regimen. Just because why not? Because when you have environmental sciences, you can.
Yes, you can. And I also liked how this highlighted your type of playing the archetype, right? Yeah,
there's like 2 infuses there, which were very good, and also the 1 fortifying draft.
Yeah.
How do you go with the crushing disappointment? Because I think that, like, one thing that Witherbloom is maybe missing is card draw, and you have enough life gain to actually not care about the...
Yeah, that was basically my thoughts here of, like, I don't actually have that much learned lesson. Like, I only have really 3 castable lessons and not that much learn either. So I just don't want to run out of cards. So that's why I was playing Crushing Disappointment here.
Yeah. I honestly think I died from the damage of Crashing Disappointment more than 2 times already this format. Like, just stabilizing on 2, no way for my opponent to win that game until he draws Disappointment, and I just died.
Were you casting them?
No. I wasn't casting them. That.
Yeah, the 2 life can definitely be relevant, and like this is a place where it can be with like a fairly like this is a deck that definitely wants to like be on the beatdown more often than not.
Yeah, indeed. I like it here. I like the card in general, honestly. Like 4 mana, draw 2 in black, which is pretty easy to cast. Kind of like it. It's not bad.
I'd rather have a harmonize, but okay. I mean,
sure. I'd rather have harmonize, but
I'd rather have like learn lesson, but it's a nice backup.
Indeed, indeed, fully agree. I think we're moving to Quandrix. To Quandrix here.
Oh god, no! Change windows. Yes.
So from my perspective, I think Quandrix was a bit easier to grasp. Although I think we put too much stock in the get to 8 lands. We thought due to Simone, the 2/2 becoming a 4/4 and the 2/3 becoming unblockable, we thought that was actually a thing that you were striving for. But I think in practice, the biggest reason to get to 8 lands is because your fractals get bigger. Basically, that's why you want.
Bookworm might be.
And Bookworm might be a reason, but it's definitely not Simone. let's say it like that. So maybe getting to 8 lands is important, but not for the reasons that we thought it was important at the start of format.
Yeah, getting to 8 lands is important because getting to more lands is important.
Getting to 9 lands is even more important. Like, yeah, I fully agree. We spotted quite well that Apprentice was broken, and it turns out it is. Like, Quandrix Apprentice is just broken. I don't see how I get this card pack 1, pick 5 or something. Like, that's just... I'm not getting those, but hey, here we are.
I mean, I can imagine scenarios, but...
There are packs, yes, but they are very rare.
Yeah, like, you know, good rare, good mystical archive rare, igneous inspiration, environmental sciences.
Yeah, and Ruta or something, and then you get Quandrix Apprentice somewhere, pick 5.
I think I would pick Apprentice over Ruta.
Okay, those are close to me.
Picking Ruta over Apprentice.
I would pick Ruta as well, yeah.
But I think that's a thing that just comes down to preference. It's like very close.
Yeah, and Ruta is just broken in half. That makes it also like Killian Apprentice. What would you pick? Back 1.
I'm picking Killian over Ruta. So
yeah. Okay, cool. We're on the same page there. So, it's very likely that you are splashing a 3rd color. I think that is also and that is not even a Quandrix feature. It's more a feature in the format in general, I think, but especially within Quandrix, it's just very easy to have access to an extra color, and also due to Quandrix requires payoffs for ramping, and if you can't find those payoffs in blue-green, you can always find them in blue-red, or maybe even red-white, or just mono-red-white. They're just payoffs in other colors that are good with the fact that you ramp. Basically, that's how I figure it works. So
I mean, I'm pretty sure I would, you know, splash Velomachus Lorehold in Quandrix, because why not?
Indeed.
Because you can.
Because you can. Exactly.
But the most common one, quite literally, is Elemental Masterpiece.
Yeah.
That's like a very common thing to see in Quandrix decks.
Yeah, fully agree. So our initial big picture, pretty spot on. As I mentioned, we were off on the importance of Vortex Runner. I think we thought it was this was how you ended the game, basically. But I think way more times you're just ending it by attacking with 7/7 fractals instead of by attacking with a 2/3 unblockable. We also thought a biometa petition was a thing, and I think we were quite far off there, because I hardly put this card in my deck these days. It's a cool sideboard card against an aggressive deck, basically.
I think that this is, you know, collect them all type of card. I think if you have 4, they're really strong, but you will rarely get 4 because people are still way too high on it.
Yeah. Another problem I think with Biomathematician is that the aggressive decks often... So like the most common aggressive deck is Silverquill, which wins a lot with flyers. So Biomathematician is less good against that. It can be good against Lorehold as a blocker, but other than that, it's not like great as a blocker. And also your Quandrix decks often aren't really that like aggressive in the early game. You would much rather play like a field trip on turn 3 than a Biomathematician usually. And like have your early defense be Scurrid Colony or Nil Thorndrake.
Yeah, I like how it blocks Killian. That's like the only thing I like about it.
Yeah,
like it cleanly blocks Killian. There are not a lot of
I'd
cards.
like to announce my votum separatum. For me, the most important common for the early game was the Thorn Drake.
Yeah, and I think that's
in my builds.
That's still correct,
yeah,
right?
Because that was the idea that basically it can kill anything for 2 mana, and you just like keep it and block whenever you need to, and while you're building up your land base. And
yeah,
I was definitely not right in terms of how you get there, but I'm quite happy to say that at least the part of it standing guard while they are trying to attack you was quite spot on.
Yeah,
and like the reach on Scurred Colony and the flying Thorn Drake are like really, really important. Those make those cards really good.
Yeah. Have you ever like colony down Silverquill opponent attacks with like the 2/3 flyer and makes it a 3/3, the Professor, instant speed Eureka moment, put your 8 land down, block it, kill it? Have you ever lived that dream? It's an awesome play pattern.
Despite having played a lot of games of Strixhaven, I have actually yet to see that.
I did it once and it was awesome. Another thing that I really like about it. Wow, I think I lost my train of thought there. Let's continue. What were you saying, Pawel? I was going to react to what you were saying. Something about the fact that you were right on. Oh yeah, the 1/1. That's my most chosen target with the red lesson. Basically, the one that kills an artifact or deals 1. Like, that's like the nemesis of Drake, I feel. I learned for that card every time I see a Needletorn Drake, basically.
Yeah, brief tangent on that card. But I think that card is like actually really good, and like it has no business being like the second least picked pick lesson.
No, I love to have one in my sideboard. It does so much in niche situations.
Yeah, it kills Drakes, it kills like Silverquill Pledge Mage, Inklings, like
it's pretty good.
Archetype even sometimes.
Yeah, it kills the 2/3 that we talked about earlier, the golem. Yeah, it kills a lot of stuff.
Poet's Quill.
Yeah. It also kills people at 1 life, which I have done many times.
Oh yeah, sweet. I've never done that, but that is sweet.
So I basically, it was not a punt, it was just in desperation, but I forgot that, of course, every lesson is a sorcery. And I was milled by my opponent, and I learned to get the start from scratch, but of course I didn't have time to play it. So close.
Unfortunate. So initial draft archetype, Quandrix ramp. As you can see, we played 2 runners in this deck, and I think there are a lot of better cards than that. Also Biomatician here. Outside of that, Square Up. Wow, that's a miss. I think we thought that was good with 1 more fractals. I think that's.
What do you mean?
The Square Up.
Who are you referring to as we, please?
We made this, Pawel. Yeah, maybe you weren't the architect, but you presented this with me. Like
also recently.
Yeah, but I have my deck in front of my very eyes, and I don't see that card.
Okay, that's fair.
Mine has 2 pop quizzes and 2 field trips.
Ooh, that's better. I do have field trips, but I just missed out on pop quiz. Yeah, for sure.
No, I think my worst misses are Biomathematicians, really.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. That was a good card.
I think the problem with Square Up is like the only way you're getting it better than like big play, for example, right? Better than +3/+3 is if you're targeting a fractal.
Right.
And your fractals are big enough that like that usually doesn't matter anyways. So like you might as well play big play at that point.
Yeah.
And even big play, you struggle to find room for it in these decks where like it's not that much of an effect that you care about. Sometimes you'll play it if you don't have much flying defense.
Unless you have a reflector golem.
Yep. Yeah, but that's a good point. Square Up is way worse than the big play. Big play also leaves a counter, adds reach. Yeah.
The reach part is a good one.
Yeah, it's
because
important.
People don't expect that card doesn't show up so often that they will play around it.
Yeah, totally true.
Going back to the archetype, one thing that I was actually kind of unimpressed by, that I was kind of surprised by, was Kelpie Guide. Like, it's not bad. Like, it's still a good card, but it's been surprisingly like not as good as I thought it would be. Like the ramp doesn't matter as much as I hope. Like I often would rather just have a field trip to ramp than a Kelpie guide. Like it dies easily, and I feel like I don't often get into a place where the tapping, like, or tapping something down matters enough.
Yeah, why is that? Because this card is better than Icebound Pillar, right?
No.
So the problem is that the times where it like generally when I most want to tap something down is before I've gotten to 8 mana. Like if I've gotten to 8 mana already, like I've probably already stabilized.
That's
yeah,
fair.
it's basically it doesn't save you from dying, and in the end, it maybe speeds you up by 1 turn by tapping something, which is okay, but it's not great. I'm also discarding, and also I think that in many cases this card will lead to very bad play patterns because people value it higher, and therefore they don't want to just waste it to chump. I've seen that many times that people just don't jump with it, and you just kill them, and they still keep the Kelpie guide in the dream that they might at some stage use it for tapping your stuff, and when they are dead before that happens.
Yeah, like the 3 mana 2/2 body also is a bit poor. Like
would have been much better as a 1/3.
Yeah, I agree. It would be much better as a 1/3 because then you could like maybe hope to block some 2x's on the ground, maybe.
Yeah, Leech Fanatics or
like,
something like that.
Yeah, like again, I'm not saying that it's a bad card. Like I think it's still fine. I'm just like thinking of it on the level of Frost Trickster in my Quandrix decks, which is another card that's like, you know, gone down since like I thought Frost Trickster was going to be the best common in the set, but it's definitely gone down from there. But like I would much rather have Scurrid Colony, Needlethorn Drake, those important 2s, than Kelpie Guide. And I also much rather have Field Trip as my ramp than Kelpie Guide.
Okay. Shall we mention the elephant in the room, basically?
Go ahead.
Is it neither this skeleton that you're showing, which is clearly not my skeleton, I'm not signing under those square ups, but also my skeleton does not have Bury-in books.
Oh, okay, yeah, that is a big elephant in the room.
Yeah,
that is a massive. I mean, I understand that we might have missed the Serpentine Curve because that's not obvious. Because especially with the experience of the same thing from War of the Sparks, which was absolutely rubbish. But not having Bury-in books is a big one. It's a big whoopsie from our side, and we should like really put some ash on our heads and repent for that mistake.
Yes.
To be fair, I'm pretty sure like basically everyone missed on Barry. Like I like the hottest I heard anyone be on Barry was like, oh, this is like a totally lost, which is like maybe fine. I didn't hear anyone saying anything along the lines of like best blue common or anything.
No.
I doubt anyone put it over Frost Trickster in their initial evaluation of the set, but like how it interacts with like actually being hard removal against fractals just like makes it so much better. And also like the 3 mana mode, like there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Indeed. And can we talk about Frostlinks and giving it flying does not make it the best blue common? That's pretty insane.
It just doesn't align very well. I mean, although I don't know if you heard the newest Lords of Limited, Ethan was quite high on Prismari aggro decks, which have basically Pledge Mages, Apprentices, Frost Tricksters, and Spectacle Mages, and then finishes the game with the Pigment Storm.
Yeah, I tried building those decks, but I find that they require some very specific cards, and I just don't get them together often. It's my experience.
Oh. Also, Jasper says in chat that apparently Ham, like Ham TV, Barry was best. I did not know that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, if it's someone,
from the start, after the start though, I don't think that he was high because that's not the Ham's style to actually make any predictions before the format starts. I know that because we made a competition at 17 lands this season, what will be the card that will be most increase in draftability over the first 4 weeks of the format? And it was Bury-in books because people started pretty low on it, and actually people caught up that it's good quite quickly because it affects creatures, so people understand that. And one of our users after the first draft said, okay, it's Bury-in books. There's no questions. So he got the prize because there was a prize for that actually.
Yep.
He got 6 packs.
Nice.
Courtesy of 17 lands. Giving back to the society.
Great tool.
Current big picture Quandrix. You wanna take this one, Jason?
Sure. So yeah, basically like we've been talking about, you want defensive 2s, Scourge Colony, and Nilithor Droid are like premium, but also like Quandrix's Apprentice is just uniquely busted, despite being like not the best thing that you'd want to trade off. It's just busted enough that it's also a really, really good too. And yeah, you want ramp spells. Things like Field Trip is really good. Eureka Moment is decent in both drawing cards and ramping. And like you have things like Cultivate is a mystical archive. We mentioned Kelpie Guide. Like it still plays the ramp role, just like less well than Field Trip, etc. do. And then you have big mana payoffs like Fractal Summoning, Leyline Invocation. To some extent, like Serpentine Curve counts as a big mana payoff in the sense that like you cast it late in the game. And yeah, Prismari, big spells, other things you might want to splash.
How are you on the Pledge Mage in those decks?
Oh, Pledge Mage? Pledge Mage is like fine in Quandrix. I think I like it more in Prismari because I think you tend to I think Prismari tends to lean more into like being a deck that's completely spells than Quandrix. So like it depends on the build really. And like I think Quandrix does have better like does already have a lot of big finishers and doesn't need the Pledge Mage as much basically.
I just found that, you know, in particular this card for some decks it becomes a massive problem. For some decks it becomes a liability on your side. So
yeah, like Quandrix Pledge Mage is definitely a card that like really varies. I think one of my problems with Pledge Mage in Quandrix specifically is it's hard to want to play it on turn 3, specifically because very often you want to play Field Trip on turn 3. You want to be ramping on turn 3, not playing a 2/2, and then waiting to ramp until turn 4. So yeah, that's my biggest problem with Pledge Mage. It's still a good card, but like definitely keep an eye out for like how much your deck will want it.
Yeah, agree. I think it's more of a Prismari aggro card than a Quandrix card most of the time. I kind of like it there more than in Quandrix, yeah, as you mentioned. Okay. Cool. Standout cards we missed in between brackets. I think here is the famous Burian books that we missed on initially. Serpentine Curve, Field Trip. I think none of these need a lot of discussion.
Did we miss on Fractal Summoning really? I mean, we all had it in the sideboards.
We did it, but we only had one problem.
I will say I missed on Fractal Summoning. I thought Fractal Summoning was like going to be the worst summoning and like basically unplayable at the start of the format. But like it is instead like probably the second best summoning, and like you can make an argument for like tied with Inkling Summoning as the best. But yeah, I just thought the rate would be too low on it. Like at the beginning of the format, I thought that like I thought the format would basically just be faster, like tempo mattered more. So I didn't like Rise, I didn't like Fractal Summoning, but like that has not panned out.
Yeah, I like how Fractal Summoning interacts with Elemental Summoning, right? That there's a 5-mana 4/4, and that you need 6 mana to make a 4/4, right? So only at 7 mana it starts to pay off. I liked how they did that, where it's actually a decision which of the summonings you take. I like how they diverged there. Can we talk about Pop Quiz a bit? Because I missed out on this card big time at the start of the format. Like I'm only starting to draft it recently, basically. I still don't think it's great, but I think it's more playable than I gave it credit for at the beginning of the format. How are you guys dealing with Pop Quiz right now?
For me, this card plays the same role as Field Research played in the Simic in Zendikar Rising. It's an essential card to have because you will draw 2 cards. You basically don't have that amazing removal. You need to draw cards to win because you want to basically outgrind your opponent with card advantage, and that's why I like it. And especially, you have much more flexibility over your late game lessons in Quandrix, especially if you're splashing. So I think that the card is essential.
Okay, So my counter argument to that, before Jason, before you dive in, my counter argument to that, Pawel, is that most of my cards are drawing cards, which is why I don't like a card that only draws me cards, basically.
Okay. It tutors basically, which is slightly different from drawing a card, but yeah, you're right in that way. The point is that there will be decks in Quandrix where you will definitely have enough of extra draw that you don't need to worry about pop quiz, and that's fine. Then the question is if you have enough learn. If you have enough learn and enough draw, fine, you don't need it. But most of the time, it's very easy to pick, and drafting it appropriately is a good idea, just to have it in case you need to put it in your deck. I can concede that probably the best Quandrix decks don't need it because they are just better.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, as a fill case, I definitely like it. Yeah.
I think
yeah.
Go on, sorry. I'm saying that I was basically just going to say that I basically agree with Sierkovitz here of like, sometimes you have enough draw, sometimes you have enough learn, and in those cases you don't need pop quiz. But pop quiz is like a fine card for like playing that role of like those two roles of like having card draw and having learn. And I do want both of those things in my Quandrix decks often. Like, again, I do agree with what you were saying, Kirsten, of like, I don't like cards that only draw cards and don't do anything else. Like, I really do not like Mentor's Guidance in like any decks.
For example, yeah.
Which is like the 3 mana, like scry 1, draw a card twice, basically. But Pop Quiz, like the card draw spells that I do like are Pop Quiz and Eureka Moment, because like Quandrix does want card draw more than the other decks. And also they both do things that aren't just drawing cards. Specifically, Pop Quiz learns, which is much better than drawing cards. And Eureka Moment ramps. I don't know why it took so long to find that word.
No,
yeah,
you agree.
It also draws more cards, which is if you want to thin your deck, and you know, especially Pop Quiz becomes slightly better, I guess, if you have things like Quandrix Apprentice and you actually thin out your deck from lands and you just draw gas all the time. In the late game, Pop Quiz in Quandrix means you get 2 spells basically.
Yeah, I think Mercurio says in chat that its Mentor's Guidance is good with Pledge Mage, or at least it becomes better if you have some Quandrix Pledge Mages in the deck, which I agree on. How does it interact with Apprentice? Does Apprentice trigger on copy?
Yeah, it triggers twice, yeah.
Okay, so it's pretty good.
It's okay, yeah, it's okay.
I mean, the problem is you can't actually curve.
You discard. The problem is you discard
cards.
Wait, what? You can't?
Like, I mean, if you go turn 2 Apprentice into turn 3 Mentor's Guidance, unless you've mulliganed a lot, you now have much more than 7 cards.
Right. That's a problem. Yeah.
So that's the problem. And, you know, Guidance would be great if it was a black or a green card, and you could play it in Witherbloom, for example, because there you have Magecraft triggers that actually mean something.
Yeah.
But if you play it in blue-green or blue-red, you basically get the, as Mercurio mentioned, you get the Quandrix Pledge Mage, which has some kind of value out of it. And then apart from that, what you have a Prismari Pledge Mage, you have a Prismari Apprentice. They only need 1 trigger a turn. The second one is absolutely meaningless for them.
Yep.
Here it's also, I mean, Apprentice, you get an extra land. That might be useful, but you can't play it early, so it's a sort of a waste of if you have to discard it to your graveyard, unless you have some kind of graveyard interaction for some reason.
Jasper adds that he prefers Eureka over Quiz. And if he gets some Eureka, he likes to add Cram.
And I think that, you know, with all respect to Jasper, but Ethan Sachs would definitely disagree with him.
As in?
Win game or draw 25 cards. Easy decision.
I like it. Let's move on to some of the recent trophy decks. Here's one that MTG Camp shared. Shout out to MTG Camp with his Danish podcast. I can't understand a word of it, but I hear that it's nice.
I have yet to see Jadzi in any of my decks or on the battlefield.
Same here. I've seen it once, and my opponent lost the game the turn after. And my opponent was the one playing Yahtzee, by the way. But I like the inclusion here. I like where this is going. That's for sure.
I mean, I would put it in my deck still. It does things.
It does things. It's an 8-mana 5/5 though. Like
yeah, I think it's like a card that like is probably not like the best ramp payoff, but like it's fine.
Yeah,
but you know, it's not the best ramp payoff, but it's a good payoff in the ramp deck that is relying almost exclusively on spells, which makes it better. Because if you would have like a classic traditional ramp deck where you just ramp into big creatures, that's probably rubbish. But
talking about
here, I can see what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 creatures and 8 including Yahtzee. So
yeah, it's fine here. And talking about ramp payoffs, there's also a Crackle with Power and a Augmenter Pugilist in the deck. So
that's a good payoff. That is a damn good payoff.
Those are
and also
payoffs indeed.
You know what I would like to stress in that particular deck is the lesson board is just that's how you play it.
Yeah, I like the teachings as well. Teachings is pretty good with drawing a lot of lands.
Yeah, I think the lesson board could maybe want like one more summoning, like either pest or elemental. But
elemental,
yeah, exactly.
But you know, pest summoning is actually quite good in those Serpentine Curve decks. I don't know if you've seen my pest summoning Dimir analysis, and the numbers on that thing are quite impressive. So basically, these type of decks might lose to a go white strategy because, you know, Needlethorn Drakes are great, but if someone plays you 5 pests, they don't do that much. They trade with the 1/1. Not impressive. So having your own pest summoning to counter this kind of strategy is pretty useful.
Yeah, I agree. Good point.
It also just like helps stabilize on the ground by like jumping until you can get your big stuff into play. So yeah.
Jasper mentions that Yahtzee hardly wheels on Modo because it were ticks. Yeah, that is definitely that's probably a bug, not a feature.
Yeah, I think that any mythic there's painfully few mythics that would wheel.
Yeah.
And if they do,
even on Arena, right? People just take them for the gems. Yeah.
Yeah, 40 gems, easy pick. I mean, I do that very often when I even have a better card, just because one pick is not going to change my draft completely, and if I can get 40 gems out of it, go.
Yeah. Although, like, so totally off topic here. I did this analysis once for myself, and the payoff of winning an extra game in the draft is way bigger than 40 gems, right? Most of the time it's like 300 gems or something. So picking it over a card that is most likely making your main deck, I would advise against that. Basically.
Yeah, I'm not doing that, and I'm not advocating it.
Okay.
But I'm definitely picking it over cards that I find replaceable.
Of course. I'm also doing that, and yeah, definitely. Let's see, another deck here. This one via at 17 lands. Shout out to 17 lands. I liked the Ruta splash here. Also double sequence. That card goes pretty late, and I like it a lot.
Wait, does sequence go late?
Okay, that's maybe something, maybe an anomaly that I noticed. I didn't check the data on it.
Streamers always played with paid actors, and they get preferential treatment. Well, I'm going to quickly tell you emergent sequence average last seen at 4, which is Combat Professor level.
That's reasonable.
I think it is a better card than Combat Professor, so I guess it is lower than I expected.
But by the way, the least picked green uncommon is Fortifying Drought, which is tragic for me. I mean, it's great for me. It's just like it's sad.
So which uncommon would you expect beneath it then?
Adventurous Impulse. Hello.
That's a good that's a good one.
That's the opt kind of card, right?
The Croc Wrangler.
Yeah, that one also is pretty medium. That's
a 3/3, right, with the Magecraft trigger. Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay. Croc Wrangler.
I'm not very good with names.
I never pick up Impulse because like most of my green decks will have like not enough creatures for me to want to play it. Really.
No, it's good with Curve. That's what I like about it.
I mean, in some sense, yes, but also in some sense, if you have like not very many creatures in your deck,
it has little hits, but then I choose land most of the time because it ramps me.
But sometimes you don't like. Sometimes your top 3 doesn't have land, and then you're really sad.
Yes, that is true. That is true.
Other uncommons that should be below it. Honor Troll.
Yes, definitely. I agree on that one.
That was a miss for me. I thought it would be better. With
wow, that's quite a lot of green uncommons that I wasn't even aware of that they existed anymore. Like I put them so far away in my head that.
Yeah, same.
That's insane.
You know, there's also Containment Breach, which is a good card, but I just think it should be a lower pick than Fortifying Drop.
Yeah. I'm like so surprised at like how high Containment Breach is when Mercurial Transformation and Start from Scratch are as low as they are. Like Containment Breach is like actually significantly higher than both of those 2 other lessons, which I think are better lessons than Containment Breach.
Oh, I never played with Mercurial Transformations. I understand it's and it has very good numbers from my lesson analysis, so that's something to keep in mind.
Maybe.
But yeah, definitely Start from Scratch is criminally under.
Oh yeah, 100%. Two questions in chat. What's the biggest emergent fractal you guys made? So basically, how many lands did you play in one turn?
I had a 4/4 against me.
Ooh.
I may have seen a 4/4. I've definitely seen 3/3. I'm not certain if I've seen 4/4.
Yeah. Same here. I made a 3/3 once, but no 4/4s for me. Awesome. Next, Overgrown Arch asked Setrox. Setrox came down on it. How are you guys on Overgrown Arch?
I still like Arch because it has really high upside in some Witherbloom decks with like a bunch of researchers, and at the worst, it's a defensive 2-drop that like gains you life and then learns, which like it's not. I think it's still worse than like Cram Session.
Okay,
but that doesn't
below Cram Session for you then.
It depends. Like pack 1, pick 1, I would pick it over Cram Session. If those were like the only 2 cards in the pack, I would pick it over Cram Session.
Okay.
Because of its upside. But like there are a lot of, I think there's more decks that I want Cram Session over Arch than I want Arch over Cram Session. But the decks where I want Arch over Cram Session, it is much less replaceable and much more powerful.
Yeah.
Also probably, but even if those were the only 2 cards in the booster pack, Cram Session would still wheel to you somehow.
Somehow, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, but I agree with your with what you said there, Jason. Yeah, totally. Anything else you guys want to add about Quandrix before we dive into
I realized I never played Quandrix. Did you know that?
Oh, you never ended up in the archetype? Oh, it's actually kind of nice to play.
But I extensively played against it, which is probably why I never ended up with it, because it was so heavily contested all through the format. And I started drafting Quandrix, I think, several times, and every time pack 1, pick 5, 6, I pivoted into something else. And most of the time it was Witherbloom, and actually most of the time I did go up like over 5 wins with that.
Yeah.
I just think that it was very, very overpicked from the beginning.
Yes. Well, I think there was a week or two where Teamer was actually the best thing you could do early on in the format.
Yeah, I think so. But I also have to say that I got to Mythic this season almost exclusively by drafting Ikoria, because it's still the best format.
I knew you were going to say that, yeah. Filthy quick drafter. Honestly.
It's Ikoria. You can't say no to Ikoria, man. I drafted like Sultai reverse mutate pile when my first creature played was usually the Terramander, and then I started building on it. Who can say no to that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
I will say I do love Ikoria. I personally don't love the quick draft, but like I understand. Oh, one last thing for Quandrix though. We gotta talk about Zimone. I really dislike Zimone. How do you guys feel?
Yeah, go ahead, Pawel.
It's fine, I guess. I mean, it's not like I wouldn't kill myself if I didn't have one. Actually, I wouldn't feel anything. I would be completely ambivalent about not having one. But if I have one, I'll play it. It's just probably I will be much more willing to trade it if there's nothing. If it ramps once for me, that's probably enough.
Yeah, I'm still picking it over Drake. Is that bad in your eyes, Jason?
I think for me, I would like almost never pick it over a Drake.
Okay.
Like in my eyes, my problem with Zimone is it's like roughly, it's almost always just like a pure card draw spell.
It is.
One body doesn't matter. The ramp doesn't come up nearly enough. Like in my experience, and Needlethorn Drake is just such a premium 2 for stabilizing. Like the Zimone, like the 1/2 body just doesn't do anything is the problem. Like it's basically an enchantment is what I've heard a lot of people say.
Are you body shaming an underage student? That won't fly.
No comment. But yeah, like I've just found that my Quandrix decks often don't need it, and it's a liability for me to like I would play it as like a top end card draw spell, but I don't want to count it as a 2-drop ever, really.
No, that's a fair point. But I think the games where you we are playing a grindy game and you have a Zimone in play and your opponent does not, those are the games I remember Zimone from, right? And in those games Zimone is insane.
You know what? I think that would be if I get Max when he comes back from his amazing trips and actually can move his ass and produce some play data for me, for my pleasure and abuse. I would like to see what is the win rates of Zimone when you draw it like
early
after turn 7.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Because maybe just having it early is just too tempting. You play it, you ramp once, it gets the Lash of Malice, and that's it, basically.
I mean, for me, usually you play it, you don't do anything with it, and it gets lashed.
Yeah, exactly. Well, but in the late game, they should be out of their lashes because they try to push the damage. Maybe Zimone is actually a card that should be a lesson, and you should learn it quite late.
Yeah, but we thought, I think at the start of the format, we thought it was Ruta level good, and it turned out it wasn't.
But it's both because we both undervalued Ruta and overvalued Zimone.
Yeah. It's both those things.
Although I still think that Ruta is right now quite overvalued. It doesn't have as high a win rate as people think because
that's a hot take.
The data on Ruta is skewed, and it's heavily skewed, and it's the only card in the 17 lands data set that is really skewed in terms of drawing, how it's calculated. So that's the problem with Ruta, and people think it's better, but I think that this card is very frequently a win more card, and those win more games skew the statistics because the problem with how Arena treats it, it's that it sees it as a new copy when it bounces itself back to hand every time you use it.
Oh, that's an issue with your data analysis. Yeah, I get that.
So basically, if you have 3 Rutas in your deck and you drew 1 and you bounced it like 7 times to copy a spell, the data counts it as 21 times Ruta was drawn. And if you won that game, which is quite likely if you played 7 copied spells, that means that it's 21 wins for Team Ruta.
That is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And that skews it badly because, you know, the more you use it, the more likely you're to win. So you'll be naturally skewed there are more games where it wins because it was bounced many times. That's the problem with them.
Okay, but I like this whole data discussion. But honestly, like saying that Ruta is not as good as people think, that's a hot take.
I calculated the actual win rate, per games that it was played, and it was 6 percentage points lower than the one that is in the data set.
Okay.
That's a big difference. And then it's actually below the average for Prismari. Yeah.
Okay. It's below the average for Prismari.
Well, we're going to get to Prismari, and I think I do disagree with the data there on how good Ruta is. And like I think that there is like I think I can justify my disagreement with like I do think it's a card that people probably do overrate and play poorly with.
I think that this is the exact point. I mean, and I will have to look at it looking at the players' individual win rate, but I think that lots of people played very, very poorly.
Yeah.
But yeah, should we move on to Quandrix then?
Yeah.
Hey, bye, Jasper.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah, Jasper, thanks for being here. Always appreciate your presence. So Prismari, it seems we were lukewarm on all of our takes, and I think that had to do with the fact that we were seeing the tempoing game plan, but we also didn't really take a stance on which of the two was better. Yeah, and we did a lot of
I was on the tempo team, if that's worth anything.
Yeah, you were on the tempo team. I remember that indeed. And I was more on the spell heavy thing, which made us come up like average basically, and we didn't really did any hot takes regarding those. How are you? How are you there now? Maybe we'll do that later. Let's go over our initial big picture and then.
Okay, I just put my tempo pre-format archetype. I think it's okay. It's not great, but I think it's pretty there.
I can bring it up quickly. Yeah, it has the pledge mages. It has the apprentice. It has a scimitar sage even. I know Jason is higher on that card than most.
I don't know if I would say I think there's something there, and I'm interested in exploring it.
Right. After your post about it, I drafted a deck that had 2 of them and trophy, but I don't think it was thanks to the sages. So I'm still pretty lukewarm on it. But yeah, this was pretty spot on. Double Aerialist, double Frost Trickster. I can see where this deck is going.
It should have burying books basically, but
yeah. That's who.
I also completely missed the interaction on Prismari Apprentice and burying books.
Yeah, that's a good one as well. Agree. Okay, so let's quickly go through our initial, and then let's talk about, especially Jason, how you are seeing Prismari right now, because I'm interested. I find this the most tough college to draft, basically. So I think our standout cards are still pretty standing out. Explosive Welcome was a miss. I was pretty high on that card coming in.
Me too, to be fair, but I was thinking about it more in the Quandrix.
Right, but it's just not.
It's still missed there.
Yeah, even there it's not good, and I'm not entirely sure why, but it's...
Wait, I think I figured it out. It's just the weight of splashing Mizzix Mastery. You just need to get to 15 lands, and then you cast this, and you have 3 red from 1 red. Good fixing.
I see where you're going.
Yeah,
Jason,
and you can recast it, get 3 mana back.
What's your idea on Explosive Welcome, Jason? Why is it not performing?
Because 8 mana is a lot more than 7. Also, I think here Creative Outburst. I think I would actually give it like a blue mark, whatever.
Yeah, probably.
I think it's actually been more medium. Specifically, I like Elemental Masterpiece much more than Welcome. I think just impacting the board with 2/4/4s, it's much more important than removal spell plus draw a card, or specifically draw a spell, which is roughly what Creative Outburst is. The reason why Creative Outburst is kind of medium is because you don't run out of cards anyways. And yeah, Explosive Welcome is just worse because impacting your own board is stronger than removing 2 of their things often when your control decks want to rely on cheap removal anyways, and 8 mana is a lot more than 7.
Yeah, very good take. Like it. Clarifies a lot for me. Thanks. Okay, so initial draft archetype, control big spell, got the double masterpiece here, so that's good. Double Pigment Storm. I think we were on the idea that Spectacle Mage was really important, making the big spells cheaper, but turns out that's not as important as we thought it would be, I would say. I like the fact that we already included a Teach by example. We were pretty hot on this coming in, which I like, because I think currently it's a totally fine playable.
Yeah, it's fine. I think the biggest misses from this are lack of obviously Burying Books.
Burying Books again. I
need to belabor that point.
That was a complete miss.
Yeah, I think Serpentine Curve is a big part of this deck.
Yeah.
Yes, fully agree. Fully agree.
I'm just laughing because I noticed that I actually have Burying Books in mine, but before I start being full of myself, I also have Ogier Battles here for some reason, and I still don't know why, because I don't think I was ever high on that card.
Nice. Okay, let's quickly
go. For those of you that don't know,
here's
Ogier
the
Battles
one
here.
Yeah,
it's rubbish. No one plays that card, and for a good reason.
This is close to the tempo build that you just shared, so I think we included it in the slide deck anyway, or at least something that was close to your build. So,
no, I think it was Max's one. He also had a tempo version.
Yeah.
And we were very similar. Yeah. He
have...
had the befuddlers, and I was more into.
Yeah.
Yeah. My problem with the tempo build for Prismari is mostly that like the 2-drops. It's hard to get good 2-drops. Like you really need multiple Prismari apprentices and Pledge Mages, and otherwise your 2-drops are just kind of medium. Like there's not very many aggressive 2s.
100% agree. Yeah, big agree there.
Yeah. And you know what? I mean, I played something that I thought would be a great Prismari tempo deck, and I even trophied with it, but it was not because of the Pledge Mages. I had 2 Pledge Mages, 2 apprentices, and they always died. It was just never happening. And in the end, I won with this deck because I had like mascot interception and teach by example, and that's how I was winning most of my games.
Just value.
Nice.
Okay, so how do we build Prismari? I'm definitely interested in this. Wanna take this, Jason?
Yep, I did write the slides, so I'll take this.
Yeah.
So basically, I view Prismari as like what you identified like at the start of the format, which is like there's control and tempo. Like there's 2 ends of a spectrum. Where control, you want to play 2-drops for defense. These can be really any 2-drops. Obviously, the best ones are Pledge Mage and Apprentice, but like you just want stuff to be able to trade off early. Then you want to play cheap removal, especially so like Bury-in Books, Heated Debate. Pigment Storm is like decent, but like goes down in value because you really want your interaction to be cheap. You want Arcane Subtraction can also fill this role if you have enough 2s, so you can like use it to like remove their 2 as they're like attacking in, and have your like Pledge Mage stick around, for example. But yeah, you just want to trade off in the early game with 2s and cheap removal. Then you want to use tools like Rutha and Reconstruct History for roughly infinite value. And here's where I think like Rutha is really good. And it's like one of the cards that like most makes this deck tick is you want to have Rutha with Bury-in Books, Heated Debate. And then on turn 5, you remove 2 things. And then from there, every single spell you cast is doubled. And like removing 2 things has basically stabilized you enough if you've also like done had other removal and played other like cheap defensive creatures. And then for finishers, you want Elemental Masterpiece and Serpentine Curve are both really good. Like with all your cheap removal, Curve gets big pretty fast. Copying it with Rutha is really good. Like also to talk a bit more about Reconstruct, right? Reconstruct is just another. It serves kind of like a Rutha, where it's like doubling your cheap, impactful spells, and that's how you want to get ahead with these Prismari control decks. You want to have cheap spells that have a big impact that you're doubling with Rutha, Reconstruct, and also Teach by Example, which is like the less good way of doing it, but like still does work. You don't want too many teaches though. And
no, but you know the good point is you always get them.
Yeah.
When Rutha is by far not guaranteed, so I mean this is like again this is your plan B, but it's a solid plan B at least.
Yeah, and Reconstruct specifically wheels a lot. So yeah, like that always. One you should either pick early. You shouldn't pick early either, and also it's more awkward because it is a splash. Though splashing is relatively easy in this format, especially with Reconstruct. Then Campus Guide gets better as well, and also Letter. But yeah, and the final piece of the puzzle is Cantrip, specifically Curate is really good, but also the Mystical Archives with Thrill of Possibility and Strategic Planning. Yeah. Those just help power your Rutha's curves and reconstructs by both filling your graveyard for curve and reconstruct and being cheap spells for you to copy with Rutha. And this is why Curate is especially important. I guess Thrill also fits this because it's an instant. So if your opponent goes to remove Rutha on turn 4, maybe you've passed with like instant speed removal, like Bury or Heated Debate up, and like after you've played a Rutha on turn 3, then maybe your opponent tries to Mage Hunter's Onslaught your Rutha, then you can just Curate and copy it, and you've fizzled their spell, gotten your value, and hopefully from there next turn you can like use your card advantage to catch up with your cheap removal. And I think like one thing that people do in this kind of control deck that's is like play Rutha poorly in the sense of they're like too unwilling to just run Rutha out there, right? Like, I think people might be too unwilling to just play a Rutha on turn 3 and like actually block with it, like leave it open to removal or other things. I think you just like do need to take that risk, and like sometimes your opponent does remove your Rutha and you're kind of sad, but you still have cheap removal. You still have a lot of card advantage to recoup the loss.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also sometimes people, I think, are too aggressive with their copying of do-nothing spells with Rutha, like copying strategic planning to like just draw more cards when and just falling further behind on board.
And then losing to self-mill, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're moving to tempo, I was going to add some things to the control version.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think you didn't mention the card specifically, but Opt and Shock also stand out to me, but maybe that was more obvious and that's why you didn't mention them. But I think those are great.
I mean, I guess the Shock will go for the cheap removal part.
Right. So those are obvious, but I just wanted to throw the names out there because they are very good in this deck, I feel.
Yeah. I was trying to stick more to commons, which is why I didn't mention.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Removing a Rutha is hell if opponent keeps mana up. I wrote that down quickly when you were talking about the interaction with the 4-mana removal spells and stuff like that. That's just insane. I mean, removing a Rutha is so tough. And that's also why I like blocking with Rutha, because if your opponent blows you out with a combat trick, you can just return it to hand with the same curate interaction that you mentioned earlier, and that's why I like blocking with it a lot. And also, how sweet is blocking with an Arcane Subtraction up and the mana to cast it? Like that is paradise for me. Like I don't like blocking, but blocking with an Arcane Subtraction in hand that's something I like to do.
Yeah, Rutha with Subtraction is also great as another way to like have protection for Rutha on turn 4 that also like messes with your opponent's combat tricks and stuff. But I also do think that people don't block enough with Rutha on turn 3. Like play Rutha on turn 3, don't have any mana up, and still block with it. I think that's something people should do a bit more. Like not always, but a bit more.
Yeah, same goes with Cody. Same thing, exact same.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in the end, it's also a tempo play in a way, because if they want to spend their turn 4 on casting a combat trick, you're probably happy with that anyway.
Yeah.
Even if you have to lose Rutha as a price, and if they don't, then you gain 2 life. So win-win, whatever.
Yeah,
fully agree. The other win is a bit more bitter.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that this is the good point that basically, and I think it's a general rule in Magic, control decks want cheap removal, aggressive deck want expensive removal.
Yeah. So. Segueing into tempo then. So in tempo you want aggressive 2s. So the best ones again are Pledge Mage and Apprentice, but like there's also just not that much like there's not really that great in term aggressive 2s in Prismaria, unfortunately. Like there's a bunch of 2-1s and 2-2s that don't do all too much for you. Like Historian makes a 3-2 later, but that you often don't care enough about a 3-2 late in the game. So like it can be hard to get it to come together. This is one reason why I like a Symmetry Sage sometimes in aggressive like tempo-y Prismari decks, because it's another cheap play, though you do need to do more work to turn that on as well. And then another big part of the tempo deck is you just have a lot of Windrakes in Prismari that like help you tempo. Like Frost Trickster, huge shout out to that one. That's like the best tool for a tempo-y deck like Prismari tempo. And Spectacle Mage also helps by just like a Windrake is a decent evasive body, and its mana reduction helps you do more stuff like specifically Pigment Storm, which goes way up in tempo compared to control because the burn really matters. Like I've often just killed my opponents by like Pigment Storm your pest. I don't care whether I don't care that I'm like using my removal spell on 1/1, you're dead. And also 5 mana value matters a lot because you often get into these decks by having multiple apprentices, which care a lot about 5 mana value spells, and also Spectacle Mages help make that 4 instead of 5. And then there's some overlap where like you do want the same 2s, Pledge Mage and Apprentice again, and those 2s do turn corners relatively quickly in control. Like Apprentice, sometimes like you just turn the corner really quickly where you attack with your Apprentice as a 3/3. Next turn you attack with it as a 4/4. Suddenly you've dealt 7 damage out of nowhere, and like that just helps you turn the corner a lot. So if you have those good 2-drops, you might also play more tempo-y things like Frost Trickster, which is like fine on defense as well, especially against flyers. So yeah, obviously cheap removal is good in both, but more essential to control. So there's a spectrum there.
Yeah, good point.
So just talking about Symmetry Sage, did any one of you manage to save your creature from the defend the campus by casting a spell and reducing your big creature's power to 2?
No, not yet.
I have not done that. The problem is that like, in order to do that, you kind of like the only creature in Prismari that really has 4 power is
it's 4/4 elementals basically. You know?
Yeah, like even fractals, like fractals have
you will increase their power. That's not good.
Yeah, I have yet to do that. I've yet to see anyone do that. Like Symmetry Sage just doesn't come together often enough, unfortunately.
But maybe saving Velomachus. That's the dream. That's the dream we want to aspire.
Yeah.
I had an opponent miss lethal against me. They copied the Pigment Storm, but they decided to target the same pest while I had multiple creatures on board. That was savage.
Well, but this is, I don't know if it's a punt or it's just
it's
like a super unintuitive interface that when you target a creature, it swaps it with the other one. If they are both the same, it's just like impossible.
Yeah, it's impossible.
Yeah.
That was
you learn in the end to look carefully where the arrows go. But I mean, if you're doing things quickly.
Yeah, it was a happy moment for me though.
Speaking of copying Pigment Storm, targeting pests, I recently missed lethal. Thankfully, I still like won in the long game because I Pigment Storm to kill 2 of their creatures and put them to a very low life total. But I missed lethal because I targeted a creature that wasn't the pest first instead of targeting the pest first.
So then that one resolves first, you mean?
Yeah, because if you target the pest first, then the one targeting the pest will resolve last.
It's goes below it on the stack.
But if you target something else first, then they will get the life gain trigger if you like have the copy target the pest, which put me 1 off of lethal, which was enough.
Oh god,
like I had some good attacks, but like not immediate lethal.
Cool.
I mean, I've seen worse things from that because I played Sultai Ultimatum, and the opponent played Kiora, Best the Sea God, and the Wrath that kills everything under 3 mana. And they mixed up the order, so they first resolved the Kiora and then they Wrathed it, and they were not happy.
Nice. I really like this slide, by the way. Just to get back to the slide, great points. Awesome.
Yeah,
good one. Let's move on. So standard cards. A lot of the things you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
We didn't mention Pillar Drop Warden.
Yeah, one thing to call out here is Pillar Drop Warden as a card that like isn't it's relatively medium in most places, but actually does have a lot of value in Prismari Control specifically, because it's another way to like double your cheap impactful spells by like just getting them back from the graveyard and recasting them. Like this, especially good with Elemental Masterpiece and Serpentine Curve. Like using it to get a removal spell isn't the best, but also just a 1/5 body with reach is
the reach. Yeah, it's the reach that makes it. This card like really is a pain in
against Silverquill.
Silverquill's plan. Yeah.
Like everything in the format that isn't a fractal basically like can be blocked by Pillar Drop Warden. Like I guess like Witherbloom Pledge Mage and things with +1/+1 counter sometimes, but like 1/5 reach blocks a lot of things, and it also like prevents Silverquill Pledge Mage and Inklings from attacking.
Yep. Yeah, Pillar Drop Warden is
especially this part is like
yeah. It's a
although
house.
it's still a very replaceable thing, and you know, in best of 3, I would probably like consider whether playing or not, and then definitely sided in against Silverquill flyer decks.
It's an insane card to side in against Silverquill, basically. Yeah, I would recommend picking this if there's nothing else in the pack for your Lorehold aggro deck or something. Yeah.
One thing that should be on the slide, but I forgot to put on the slide because I didn't realize it was on the. I didn't realize it wasn't on the other slide was Elemental Masterpiece.
Yeah,
like that's a very good card that wasn't in your initial standout cards, but we've already talked about that a lot.
Do you ever cycle them for treasure?
I mean, like, I sometimes do. Like, if I'm on 2 lands and I have a 3-mana learn spell that gets me an Environmental Sciences, like, I will definitely cycle it for a treasure.
Yeah.
Or like if like I have a Reconstruct History that I really need to cast to like maybe I'm on like 5 mana and I have a Reconstruct History that I really need to cast to get back some cheap removal spells, sure, I'll cycle it for the fixing. But like I'm often looking to try not to.
Yeah. It also
no, it's understanding. I was just curious about your plan, about how you approach it.
Yeah, it has a very sweet play pattern with the rare, the 3-mana rare. That's a 2/2, and then gets counters equal to like half rounded up of the mana value. So
yeah,
it's 4 mana. Yeah.
Yeah. So the play pattern is on turn 2 you discard the 7-mana spell, you make a treasure. Then on turn 3 you play a land, you resolve the thing, and you have a 6/6 on turn 3 basically.
Just play Mystic's Mastery.
That's
also Mystic's Mastery is another one.
Yeah, that's also another one.
Yeah, there are definitely things where like you can cycle it to put in your graveyard for like the Torrent Sculptor. That's the rare that you were talking about. Mystic's Mastery to get 2 4/4s on turn 3. Draconic Intervention. Sometimes I have discarded it in order to like have the Draconic Intervention kill everything.
Yep.
And also there's what's it called? Free Flame Painter, the double strike rare that like casts spells for free out of your graveyard. I don't think I've ever actually cast a Masterpiece off of it, but I threatened to cast one against Sam Black once, and
but you see, this is the problem with that card. It's technically good. It's a 1/4 double strike. You can do a lot of things with it, but getting through with it is so difficult.
Yeah, I think it's better in Lorehold where you already want to play Enthusiastic Study and Study Break. There's a really good thing push it through.
+1 trample is insane on it.
Yeah, but like even without those, at its worst, it's a 1/4 double strike that they can't let.
No.
So like it's definitely still very good.
Yeah.
Just like
I always treasure cards that require your opponent to basically play the game you want them to play, and this is one of those cards that definitely. It changes how your opponents play, and it's great.
Yep.
Because they will do that, and they didn't know that they will do that when they started the game most of the time.
Yeah, agree. Some recent trophy decks. This is one by you, Jason. I think it's a clear Jason deck, double history.
No, this is how it should be. I mean, this is exactly what double reconstruct history, perfect.
Yeah, this is like exactly the control deck I was talking about. 2 Reconstruct Histories, 2 Ruthas, cheap defensive creatures like Campus Guide to help stabilize, and then like cheap interaction with 2 Heated Debates, 2 Subtractions, and like a couple cantrips as well.
Yeah, love this one.
So, how are you on playing Biblioplex Assistant in those type of decks?
I mean,
with Reconstruct History in particular.
Yeah, Biblioplex Assistant is definitely one that is like less good in my opinion. It's like definitely worse than Pillar Drop Warden because like it's much worse at blocking. It is nice that you don't have to sacrifice to get the spell back, but like it does take a draw, so like you're not getting card advantage, you're getting more card selection in some sense. I mean, it is some card advantage. Strictly speaking, but I still would rather not play it. Like I don't want to play it to get back cheap removal spells is the thing, right? Like I want to play it if I have a lot of impactful spells, like if I have Serpentine Curves or like rare things like multiple choice or Lorehold command or like if I have like a bunch of masterpieces that I'm really good at ramping to, like maybe in Teamer.
I put a deck in the chat, Sander. This is basically what you're talking about. I put the Biblioplex Assistant in this one.
Because Biblioplex Assistant looks really good here with Lorehold Command Magma Opus. Yeah, and also Electrolyze. It's pretty good too.
Yeah, but I mean, this is the sort of thing I'm looking for. But double root, this deck is just.
Which one? Which one are you talking about now? Do you
But,
want?
but both of them. I mean,
Okay, okay.
I like mine, but I liked Jason's more. It's more like
They're both insane. I mean, Cody plus Magma in this one, and then and this deck is also something that you would. Basically, if I let you choose the cards you want in your Prismari deck, this is close to what you would pick up.
no, but look at how much more streamlined this one is. It doesn't have those clunky, expensive spells.
Nope, it doesn't.
And still, probably it will overwhelm anything that you can play against it with power, because you will play Serpentine Curve with copying with from Rutha, and you achieve much more than playing Magma Opus, which is a good card. Don't get me wrong, but 8 mana is a lot, and in the end, is that much powerful? The Elemental Masterpiece.
I mean, I will say yes, Magma Opus is
but you know, we're talking about a mythic versus a common.
Yeah, definitely. Like Magma Opus is just something that like one in very many drafts you'll get it and you'll be very happy. But like you definitely cannot rely on that for your Prismari decks.
No. So true, so true. Let's see, what do we have? We have another Prismari deck. This one is very Serpentine Curve focused.
Yeah.
I like to build those kind of decks. So I have an Op to Brainstorm, Dispute. Oh, this is the double Sage deck that I was talking about earlier, Jason.
Oh yeah, I do like the Sages here. Like I like all the synergy. Like you have those 3 1-mana cantrips roughly. Like Dispute is kind of a cantrip, plus like another cantrip at another 2 cantrips on 2, and like they play well with Resculpt because like sometimes you'll just want to turn your Sage into a 4/4.
Exactly.
Sometimes and like Resculpt already works with like Mascot Interception.
That combo is insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is sick. I'll get your creature, I'll kill it, I'll make a 4/4. Sure, your turn.
But yeah, this is a pretty nice like mixture between the like there's some controlling elements and some like tempo elements here. Like you have like Pigment Storms to for some burn, and you have Burying Books as like both like cheap removal, but also like you can use it offensively to like tempo your opponent out, like make them keep drawing the same cards over and over again, paired with your Symmetry Sages to push early damage. Pretty nice.
Yeah, I like this one. It also has the Torn Sculptor Masterpiece combo that we talked about earlier.
Oh yeah, I just noticed the Torn Sculptor. Torn also good bury. Like you can bury on turn 3, turn 4 you cast Torrent Sculptor and it's say like what 5/5?
5/5 at that point. Yeah, that's sweet.
Yeah, did you ever go brainstorm environmental sciences in this deck, or brainstorm strategic planning,
or curate? Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Or even Ibrahim, the dean of whatever.
Yeah.
Indeed, sweet. Okay, let's quickly touch on some other. So we talked at our previous at the initial draft archetype chat we talked about 3-color archetypes a bit, and also what we expected them to do, or at least what synergy they would abuse from both of the colleges that they would combine in something broken, basically, right? So that's what we talked about, and I would like to get your get your input on these as well. So we talked about Temur being ramped towards big spells, and I think we nailed that one. Props to us. Jeskai, we named spells in the graveyard matter because we assumed that a lot of the Prismari spells allow you to get stuff in the graveyard, and then the Laurel stuff would make you able to get them out. But I think we...
And Thunder.
Yes.
And we were so right for so many wrong reasons.
Right, indeed. Indeed.
Spells in graveyard matter because you reconstruct history.
Indeed. And I think in the end it's just a control value combo, right? It's just...
Yeah, the white is just for extra value plus Lorehold command plus / Velomachus Lorehold, I guess.
Yeah, indeed. So it didn't turn out the way we expected it to, but well, close, but indeed not for the right reasons. Mardu, we dubbed a Twin Scroll Shaman in Silverquill because we assumed that Twin Scroll Shaman would be very good with all the black and white combat tricks. It's not necessary that, right? It's more like aggro with a splash. Like
yeah. Yeah. Also, you can build more like controlling value-y lesson Mardu decks with like Rise as well, and like Sam Black's episode on white control outlines that pretty well. Like also like Twin Scroll Shaman is not really the card to splash in Mardu generally. Like Mascot Interception and First Day of Class and like Enthusiastic Study are generally my picks.
Yeah, fully agree.
But yeah.
So my only experience with Mardu is playing Silverquill with Joffrey. Oh, actually twice I did it.
That's a fine experience, I would say.
Yep.
And especially the deck with 2 Joffreys, I was quite happy with that one.
Nice. Sultai we named defense, removal, and late game, and I think that's pretty spot on.
Yeah.
I think
it's like basically an extension of Quandrix.
Yeah, indeed. It's Quandrix with some extra removal.
Well, you know, I mean, we didn't mention the archetype, but that's basically sort of the Dimir version, the Dimir that Sam Black was talking about.
Yeah, indeed. Now that you mention it, I think this is close to.
We were there. We just didn't figure out the Serpentine Curve is quite important in the Serpentine Curve deck. But we were there early adopters.
Nailed it.
You heard it first.
You heard it here first. Nailed it. And then Abzan. The only reason I've played Abzan so far is because I was in either 2 of the colleges and had a broken rare in the other college, basically. Outside of that, I never combined Abzan cards. How's that for you guys?
I thought that you were going to say the only time I played Abzan is because I was short on playables, but
okay, that might happen, but so far I don't see a lot of interaction between the cards in the 2 colleges. How's that for you?
I mean, for me, like my most common way of playing Abzan is having like an aggressive Witherbloom deck, like I've described, and splashing like Owlin Shield Mages.
Yeah.
And sparring regimen.
Yeah. Or I'm not gonna count when I like splash or like.
Yeah.
But yeah, roughly something like just.
Oh wait, I can actually, you know, I have a sort of large database of every single game in Strixhaven that was ever played, and I can actually find some kind of Sultai deck, Abzan deck that went 7-0 or something.
Sure, bring it on.
I'm not going to be able to find the actual deck, but okay. Opponent colors. No, we want your colors.
While you do that, Jason.
Yeah.
What do you think about the 4+ color good stuff? Like so, during the initial review, we assumed that due to all this colorless fixing, that there would probably be a 4+ color good stuff pile. And I've seen some, but it's not an archetype that I lean towards or something. It's not something that I'm looking for. How's that for you?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, I think generally you can find enough power in 3 colors that you don't need to go to 4. And environmental sciences specifically is really good at fixing you for your 3rd color, but really bad at fixing you for your 4th color, unless you have 2, right? Like, and it's often hard to pick up 2 environmental sciences because they're like relatively highly valued. They're still undervalued, and also like you give up a lot by taking your 2nd one highly as well. I have had like 4 color good stuff decks. Like for the draft challenge, I had a deck that had Blot Out the Sky and Blot Out the Sky, Magma Opus, Extus, and 4 Biomaths, and it was like base blue-green.
Nice.
It had 2 sciences, and that's like what held it together. It went 4-2, but it went 4-2 mostly because I lost a game that I really shouldn't have, because I ran out of time on the clock while I was trying to resolve a Magma Opus, and it ended up auto-targeting like some random things for tapping, and I think I had like at more than a 50% chance of winning that game. But anyways, like I do think 4 color good stuff can be powerful, but like often like you don't need that splash, and when you do, like you'll just know like, oh, I'm in Quandrix and I see a Velomachus Lorehold. Sure, I'll take it.
Right. Yeah. No, similar experience.
Yeah, like not so much a like full on. I just have all the colors, though. I have seen decks mostly in the style of like sandblack curve decks that do like lean more heavily into 4 colors.
Yeah, I noticed. Let's see if I can bring it up while Pawel is looking into it. I noticed Max Mick posting a pile this morning, with which he got 6 wins. Yeah, this one. I'll quickly throw it up the screen. Pop.
Wow, I managed to find the trophy deck that is Absam, but to go on with the pile, I still
Oh
have
yeah,
to
I'll
check
quickly
what's
throw up
inside.
this pile. So this is a clear 4-color good stuff deck to me.
Yeah.
It's playing all the colors. Yeah, apparently this 6-0'd. I'm still
Wow.
wondering how Max made the mana work, but
That doesn't look that bad to me. Like you have a lot of learn within environmental sciences. You have a verdant mastery, and like you also have like solve the equation to help find your fixing as well.
yeah, definitely.
But it does have a lot of powerful effects, and you don't need the white and black that much.
No,
Like you need it like mostly late game. But yeah. Oh, so there was a deck I drafted really early in the format. I think it went like 2-1 or something. It wasn't like that good, but I expected it to do really poorly. I don't think I wanted to like try to find it, but it was a Quandrix deck that was playing 2 solve the equations to so that it could find a main deck environmental sciences and a blot out the sky.
Nice.
Okay, sounds base.
So I could solve the equation to get like my fixing, and also solve the equation to get my blot out.
Nice.
No, that's a very intrinsic plan that you had there.
Yeah, it was not that good, but I'm glad it at least went 2-1.
Blot Out the Sky is broken, by the way. That
Yeah.
card.
I never had the pleasure to play it, but luckily I also didn't have the pleasure of. Oh no, once someone played against me and it didn't end well.
So normally, in my experience, normally those effects make you half the tokens of the amount of mana you spent or something like that, right? So it's like half X or yeah, the spell would cost like XX plus some on-color mana pips, and then you would make X tokens. But here it just flat out spend X, make X tokens, which is mind-blowing, right? 6 mana already gets you an insane spell. Imagine putting in more. Yeah.
Wow, you know what's the impressive thing?
Go ahead.
It actually is sort of 3-color aggro counter deck.
The one you have here.
Yeah.
Can you?
I mean, like 2 blood researchers. I don't have the picture. I have it only in Excel.
Okay.
Like 2 blood researchers, 2 combat professors, 2 infused with blood, 2 scurried colonies, overgrown arch, cultivate, dueling coach, eager first year, humiliate, Karok wrangler, Killian, letter of acceptance, mortality spear, Oling shield mage, professor of. Once my Excel becomes operate, it's not easy to work on 3 GB files in Excel. That I can tell you.
So that deck actually has the combination of blood research and dueling coach. We were onto something here.
Boom.
Nailed it.
No, change it to the blue minus. No, I still don't think it is. I mean, I would have to check because I didn't. Maybe it was in silver or something. That also sometimes happens in the data.
Yeah, but okay, that's interesting. So,
but maybe there is. I mean, I guess that to go well with this deck, and I've scrolled through some decks, and lots of them were just like 3/3, 2/3. I guess that sometimes you just make a deck that is just combination of good cards in all colors, and you draw the right mana and the right cards in the right order, and that's how you win.
You get lucky, indeed. Okay, more on the 3+ color pairs. No, let's go quickly. Let's wrap it up. I think one of the statements we made was that some of the mystical archive cards are actually broken and you should not pass them, and I think we were right on all 6 of these.
I did pass approach, but it was pack 2, and I was just so far off it that I didn't bother.
Yeah, Yeah, like Approach, Day of Judgment, and Mizzix's Mastery are ones that you might pass, even if they are on color, because they might be like really off plan. But like otherwise, yeah, they are really busted.
Yep, fully agree. Fully agree. And I think
Demonic is also another really good one. Like,
yeah.
like on the level of like Lightning Bolt of like, it doesn't do anything like too special, but it like adds a lot of like just like really good rate to your deck.
I think that the Demonic Tutor is strictly better than Lightning Bolt.
I mean,
it's
sure.
40 gems against 20. For me, that's a no-brainer.
But I mean, what I'm saying is it doesn't completely change how you build your deck the way that like Mizzix's Mastery, Approach, or Day of Judgment.
Yeah, no, exactly, no. Just like it just basically you have a second copy of your best card or the card that you need.
Also, it's a Environmental Sciences that doesn't gain you 2 life, so clearly Environmental Sciences is better.
Yeah, that's true.
Yesterday,
or the day 0 before, gems. Yeah, just false progress for that.
Yeah, yesterday, a friend of mine, Boos, I think it was yesterday or the day before, he asked me how I thought about a tutor, and the way I explained it to him, and I was wondering whether you agreed with the statement, is that it is as good as your best rare. Do you like? Basically, it's a copy of the best card in your deck. That's how I approach the card. Is that?
I would say like 5% weaker than it, because obviously you need to pay 2 extra mana for it. That's for the second copy.
Right.
I mean, I'd say it's more likely to be 5% stronger because of the flexibility. Like I think the most impactful cards often, your best cards are often the ones that are like cheaper anyways, so the 2 mana doesn't matter too much, and the flexibility matters a lot. Like the fact that I can go get a land is huge. I had a deck the other day where Demonic Tutor was like my only rare mythic in my deck, and it went 6-1 pretty easily in the draft challenge. It was just like a learn lesson deck.
Yeah.
And like it's just like Demonic Tutor every time either found me a land or a Rise of Exodus or a Igneous Inspiration, basically. Like or maybe something to like finish it off. And like that was just really good. Like either I get a land if I'm missing my land drops, or I get a cheaper learn removal spell, or I get a more expensive learn removal spell that hits everything. And like that just like is really, really good.
Yeah.
I can post it in chat.
Sure, go ahead. But I like that. Yeah, Demonic Tutor is definitely on this list. Any other broken Mystical Archive cards that you guys can think of from the top of your mind?
Blue Sun Zenith also kind of changes the way you build your deck, but it's not nearly as broken. Like it's just a really good draw spell that also serves as a finisher sometimes.
Yep.
But like it's definitely a step below the ones on the other side. I think it's worse than Lightning Bolt even.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, yeah, here's the tutor indeed. With the inspiration and the rises, as you mentioned.
Also, Humiliate was a good thing to get with tutor sometimes.
Yep, like it. Yeah, looks good. Okay. For me, we can wrap it up here. Any last things you guys want to add to this? Revisit of the draft archetypes.
Not really. I think we covered basically everything.
Yeah, same. Pawel, any last words?
I really hope that the next set is going to be at least a bit more predictable. I think that, I don't know if it's your feeling, Sander, but I really struggled with making the skeletons. I didn't have a single problem with Zendikar. I didn't have much problem with Kaldheim. Here it was an uphill struggle to build them without any kind of play data. It was so unintuitive, and there were so many traps in that set.
Yeah, I agree. Most of the gold uncommons were a trap, basically.
And I think it's not even traps. I think that the designers didn't figure it out.
Oh, that could be. Did you think that they undervalued lesson learned? No, right? Can't be.
I think that this they didn't, but I think that the expansion did not work in limited as it was not as the designers intended to. It was not the magic as Garfield wanted, or whatever the Garfield's ancestors.
Yeah, I think specifically Lorehold, they did a good job with the Lorehold Commander deck, I think, but like for limited, they did not really get Lorehold to like what they seem to want to have
Don't
it.
you think that they were maybe a bit, scarred from cycling in Nicoria? That basically
Maybe.
white red that was busted, so they didn't want to give like Quintorius should have a self-built way to exile cards from graveyard.
Or maybe just be a better body, or be like a bit cheaper,
Or
like,
4 mana, yeah.
Yeah, or just like have other effects that like do something other than Quintorius. That would help a lot.
Yeah, I think the same with Dina. I think that Dina, there's something wrong with that card. There's something missing. I mean, I know Trump would be busted, but something,
Yeah.
Maybe like an additional like you gain 1 life on the sacrifice or something.
Yeah, maybe like the Lampad, or make it a 2/3. It would be even better as a 2/3.
Yeah.
Like I played with it yesterday and I won games with it because people don't know how to play well around it. But it was an uphill struggle, and I played Crash Course in main, so
yeah,
bit of cheating there.
Like yesterday or a couple days ago, I was playing against Adina, and my opponent played really poorly with it, and so lost a game that they definitely should have won. So yeah, it's just a card that is powerful but hard to play, but like also kind of narrow.
Also lacks. It's lacking. It's not Zimone style lacking, but it's just like, when I played the signature uncommon, I want to feel like this special feeling, like when you played what was the black blue thing in Guilds, I guess.
The flyer, the 3/3.
No.
Yeah, that was
the
that card
enchantment.
was sick.
The enchantment.
Oh, the disenchanted campaign or something with campaign.
Yeah. Disinformation campaign.
Disinformation campaign.
Yeah, that's one. I mean,
you
felt like $1 million by playing it, and when you played it the second time, you thought like, yeah. And I have the same feeling with Ruta, and I don't have that feeling at all with Dina or with any other.
Yeah. With Dina, it's always like, I always feel like I'm like trying to squeeze as much value as I can out of Dina instead of like, it never feels like I'm like really doing the thing as much as really trying to do the thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing.
Yeah. Okay.
But okay, I mean, this is just a
yeah. Let's wrap up. Let's wrap up this part of the stream. I'm going to play my final match of my traditional draft. So if you guys wanna hang out and triple heads that to a victory, that would be fun maybe.
I unfortunately have to go and cook dinner.
No worries.
I'm going to take a 5, but knowing you probably play very slowly, and I'll be back before you're done.
Awesome.
Thanks for
yeah. Wrap this up, Jason Sierkovitz. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it, especially.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for letting me share this lovely forum with Jason.
Yeah.
Who I really loved meeting, and I'm a happy person because of that.
Nice. Good. Yeah, Jason, thanks for coming on, man. That was awesome. And we'll definitely do this again next set. So if you're up, we would like to have you on again.
Modern Horizon skeletons. No, just kidding.
No,
just
kidding.
We're arena
kidding.
people.
I don't think I'm going to be nearly as much into Modern Horizons because it's not on arena.
Indeed.
Exactly. But same here. I'm a zoomer. I'm one of those young folks on arena, not one of those boomer people. I have to say, I boycotted MTGO from the day it was released, and I'm very proud of my insight at that time.
Yeah, people who are still watching, make sure to give Pawel and Jason a follow on different social media. I just threw the links up. Jason is also streaming, so check that out. Thanks for watching all. And,
I'll also soon be streaming as soon as you teach me how to use the bloody software.
I will. Hit me up and I'll give you a short introduction. No worries. Yeah, thanks
Sweet.
a lot. Thanks a lot for hanging, peeps. And if you want to see me get another trophy, then stick around. Appreciate it. I'll cut the YouTube video here somewhere.
Bye.
Bye, Jason.
Bye.